We're going to start this workshop on the audit workshop. Before, I'd ask you if you have any devices that make noise, please put them on silent. And also, we have a special guest going to open our workshop, and he's going to be opening up our meeting this afternoon. And I'm going to let Commissioner introduce it.
With a man that needs no introduction to this county, Vic Givens, pastor, brother in Christ, community leader, and county employee. Give us an honor of come opening with prayer for this session and for our regular session. So, Vic, if you'll come up and open us with prayer, I'll lead us into pledge.
Heavenly Father, we give thanks once again for your kindness and your goodness to us. We thank you right now for bringing us together once again. We even thank you right now just for traveling grace and mercy. But we ask you right now, as we prepare ourselves for this meeting, we ask you to bless our hearts and our mind, that we may come together and do the will of the peoples of Baker County. We ask you to bless us, we ask you to guide us, and we ask you to keep us. In your Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And Miss Sarah, I'm going to just turn it right over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Presented before you all today is going to be our budget, listen to me, our audit discussions. We do have representation from James Moore. Ben and Zach are here to give our presentation, and they do have a PowerPoint also that we're going to go over. You guys should have the documentation in front of you all, as well as being presented on screen. And I'll turn it over to Ben and Zach, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. What you got for me?
Good afternoon, Zach Shalafor, partner, James Moore and Company. So we of course all know what we're here for. I know we've got an hour scheduled. Kind of what our plan is, just to kind of flip ahead and kind of share what we were thinking. Again, we are here at the pleasure of the board, so we can adjust however needed. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of questions. So our plan was to kind of touch, procedurally, audit process overview, kind of backtrack into everything leading up to today. Hopefully address kind of some of the common questions out there, provide perspective with that. Start talking a little bit about just kind of what to expect for the fiscal year 24 audit. So kind of plan was I would open it, hit kind of all of those items. Ben will take you through the detailed results and reports from the 2023 and 2022 audits, and then we'll kind of finish it off with a quick update just on the 2024 audit in terms of specifics with regard to where we were at. We had thrown a screenshot in there to kind of help summarize it. Things have evolved in the last few days since then, but still just again to give the board a feel for that, and then touch base on anything from a kind of going forward perspective, what to expect and otherwise. Again, kind of from a just general standpoint, there's obviously time at the end for questions. If as I go through there's any questions, on the portion of the timing or whatever that we're talking through, I'm more than glad to answer questions as we go. So kind of leave that up to you guys. But again, we're here at the pleasure of the board, so glad to move forward in any way as you all desire. So does that sound like a plan?
Sound like a good one to me.
All right. So just kind of talking conceptually. Obviously, the last few months, I think there's lots of clarity in terms. That you've had updates every couple of weeks at the meetings leading up to the audit being completed, but still figured just kind of talk through some of the overall timing communications that take place, even what we're seeing in the industry in terms of some of the challenges that are out there that are not necessarily unique to Baker County. With regard to the process, of course, really focusing on the fiscal year 23 audit. That state due date, statutorily, there's a 9-month due date, as I know the board has discussed. That takes us to June 30th. From the timeline beyond that, again, just for kind of perspective, typically in August or so, around that 11-month mark, the Florida Auditor General provides an initial list to the JLAC, Joint Legislative Audit Committee, That then is taken by the JLAC, usually I think in October or so is when they send those initial notices in terms of the items are audit is delinquent, start discussing process and so forth. And then I think January, I believe, is when you all received kind of the more hardline communication from the JLAC in terms of their follow-up, setting the deadline and so forth. Just one interesting piece to it is JLAC does not really directly involve us. So it's one where we kind of found out after the fact, here's the communication and otherwise, just again from how the process looks, because I will get into kind of what some of our game plan is going forward. Because what I do want to just also acknowledge, from our standpoint, kind of owning what we pledged to ensure that we provide the board with. I know at one point there was discussion kind of, starting to get that like, whose fault is it? Who knew what when? I remember hearing comments, the board hearing from your lobbyist, I think when they saw it on the JLAC agenda, I believe was when there was a kind of formal notice. At that standpoint, I know there was discussion, of the clerk's office, the manager, and I was like, okay, nobody's mentioning us. And while the JLAC does not report to us, notify us of those things, in retrospect, looking at this as the JLAC's gotten just kind of more serious universally, we've kind of said, hey, we want to be part of that process as a means of advising the board or just governance in general, depending on the type of organization from our standpoint. So what I will tell you is, as I look back, I was like, we should have also notified you guys just in terms of, hey, first the audit's delinquent, and then just kind of the at least what to expect, what to be on the lookout for. Because the JLAC, of course, does, I believe, address the letters to the chair, maybe the clerk's office, but that's one that, again, we're outside of that process. So from our standpoint, I just did want to acknowledge that, and as we look towards next year, basically say that if there is a late audit or other similar scenario, that will be something that you all are receiving communication from us. So that is basically a promise from us going forward in terms of what our process will be. Again, it's one that we've kind of historically said, okay, it's being communicated, everybody probably knows, but we've said, hey, we're not going to assume anything, even not knowing when JLAC will do their thing, but we will share, here's at different points in time where the audit's at, what you all need to be aware of. So just to quickly kind of highlight what that would look like is our kind of game plan. This is just looking prospectively, but did want to quickly share that we plan to basically send out 3 letters. One, come July, if an audit is delinquent, there is a written notification from us so that you all, from our standpoint, are fully up to speed in terms of just here's the situation, here's the status, kind of a quick overview. I know we got into kind of the weekly status updates to give a formal update and communication as to where the audit was in terms of wrapping up the fiscal year 23 audit. And then with that, just kind of addressing here's what to expect from JLAC, and here's what their timing might look like, again, in terms of the deadlines they set. Hopefully that's never has to be dealt with again. But we would be kind of helping guide you guys in terms of here's what to expect and providing that information as timely as possible, both in July and then a few months later, so that you guys have all of that information on a current basis.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Zach, I appreciate you being here. Let me say this up front. I'm going to ask for something a little bit different than that. If we wait till July to get a notice, we're already late. We're already now in the delinquent notification process as well. We shouldn't be waiting till we're delinquent before we know what's going on. So some of the questions, and you can answer them at your leisure whenever we come to this presentation. The question I'd like to know is, from the end of the fiscal year, when we close out on September 30th, what is a typical time that you would need to have all your information submitted to you to begin your audit? And 2, how much time do you need to complete your audit such that it is turned in on time by July, not get notifications that we don't have anything yet and the delinquent notification is passed? We need to be more proactive,
For sure.
not reactive. And so I'm going to want to know that. And so, because what has been made very clear to us through this whole process since February is you report to the board, not the clerk. While you get your information from the clerk and the other constitutional officers, and the clerk provides the information for the administration, the Board of County Commissioners, you report to us. That's been made very clear. And so what I'm going to ask is we keep being notified, and we need to know if information is not being sent to you in a timely manner such that you can do the audit on time. We need to know that and not wait till it's delinquent.
Absolutely. That's a good point, very fair point. And again, this is as we're starting to think of, okay, what do we proactively? So I very much appreciate that feedback. To quickly address kind of a normal timeline, I don't want to get too far off track, but just to kind of very high level that normally what our process looks like, what we want it to look like, is we're actually, say, July, August, kind of starting the process for the upcoming fiscal year. So in an ideal scenario, in a couple months, we would be gearing up all of our planning procedures and so forth for your fiscal year 25 audit. From that standpoint, we get just internal control, other basically non-financial activities, so transactional work, things that don't revolve around these are the year-end numbers that populate the financial statements. But this is testing that's required to be done. Our goal is to always be tackling that as much as possible, kind of late summer into the fall. In terms of the overall timeline, the earliest that we wrap up a county, the first county audit we wrap up this year, it was late March, was the report date, just from a fastest turnaround. That was a pretty large county with a very robust staff. Just from state disclosures, other information, it's probably the earliest everything in totality could be turned around to be ready for us is probably early February in a maximum best case scenario.
So it takes about 7 months from the end of fiscal year before everything can be turned into you?
So 4. From
October, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
From October.
That's about the fastest. From the normal internal close, and then as a participant in the Florida retirement system, numbers from the state usually come out in mid to late January. So we do have some cases where we do get started on field work, and generally more on the city side, but a few counties. About the earliest we start any audit field work is the December following that year end. So we do have some clients that get things turned around very quickly in a matter of a couple months in terms of being ready for audit. From the amount of time, really just depends on the size of the entity. Is everything ready? We have some jobs where we start it before the state information is out on the FRS, and so it's piecemeal kind of inherently because we want to get a head start as much as we can, kind of front load that work, but some comes in a little bit later. So that can vary. Generally I would say weeks to months, just depending on how concentrated is it, because we have different clients where there's a different approach based off of what we're getting. Do we get it all and say let's crank it out, or is it a little bit more piecemeal? So that's hard to get a really firm figure on, but hopefully that helps give a little bit of perspective.
On that, is there any way you could develop a calendar timeline? This is what we would like to see by this time. This is what we would like to see by this. We do it in piecemeal stages, there's certain pieces that we can do at a certain time. Is there any way that can be put into a calendar?
Yeah, so that's part of the normal process. When everything is kind of starting. Obviously the last couple audits, it's been playing from behind. So the normalcy has kind of been outside of it, where it's more just been, hey, we are ready. Once everything's closed out, ready for audit, trial balance is provided, we will be ready to say, okay, when are we getting that, and then direct those resources. The goal is, the majority of the work that we do, and getting kind of ahead of ourselves. Once I kind of get into just the March 31st discussion, the goal in the majority of our work is very planned out. And we have a handful of clients where it's like clockwork. We are starting field work the week of January 16th, and we are presenting to the board at the second meeting, the third Monday of February, or whatever the case might be. We have lots of work that is on a very set schedule that, barring, generally speaking, any major personnel disruptions on the client side, we pretty much know that that's going to be the game plan. So yes, that's where we want to get to, 100%. And we do outline in terms of our request list when we need it, and try to work on a mutual schedule that works. But that's 100% the best in class where we want to be.
And that would be beneficial to the board, so we can know where we're supposed to be at a certain stage, and we can get updates.
Yeah.
Like we did through this process. This is a process that I'm going to ask to be continued,
For sure.
not just through this process of trying to get out of this mess that we got ourselves into, but a continued process on where we are on our audits, so we don't get back into the same situation.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair in terms of, kind of the way we work, where, we're not, we always have to be skeptical, but thinking just, kind of the trust but verify, like, typically, how we, operate in most cases. Again, when something's on schedule, it's kind of like this no news is good news. Again, for the fiscal year 24 audit, obviously, where we're coming up on the June 30th deadline in a couple months, and then beyond that, we're absolutely glad to do that, and we'll make sure that we do that for 25 as well, in terms of just the proactive to kind of get to where, we want to make sure the board has confidence and knows that basically where, again, we want it to be is, unless you're hearing something from us, I always, in a lot of those cases, we'll kind of say, no news is good news, and
The
we'll make
problem
sure that
with us was no news was bad news,
yeah,
because we wasn't getting anything, no news, and we was in a bad situation when
For sure.
I finally got some news that I shouldn't have got. So I don't want to get in that position anymore, and I don't want anybody, I don't want the county in that position anymore.
yeah.
So
No, and
whatever
that's-
we have to do together, unilaterally, we need to do that,
yeah.
and not to get in that position.
For sure. And that's one, again, you have my word that will not, for lack of us trying to communicate and keeping you updated, that will not happen again.
I appreciate it.
With regard, let's see what we had there. So, okay, I'll go to the next slide. So let's see, some of these we've probably touched on, but again, just kind of closing all of the loops of different questions, discussion points that have been out there. I figured would be worth addressing. The state obviously did set forth initially the March 31st deadline. We did pretty heavily rearrange resources, do what we could. Kind of the analogy I had initially is that's like saying, to the tax department at a CPA firm, hey, we've got a delinquent tax return. It's got to be done by April 15th. In March, and talking about the scheduled work that's very much like clockwork. Our peak time is January through March, so that was kind of our biggest challenge to say, okay, we're trying to squeeze into a very fixed and pretty heavy time space in terms of the hours our team is working. So that was one where just kind of looking at that, the turnaround time from when we got everything, I believe early February. I don't have that date on here, so don't take my word for it if I'm slightly off there. We just were like, there's a lot of kind of back and forth, make sure all the numbers are good, that would be difficult. It was, of course, issued about a week and a half or so, or in the late part of the first half of April, which kind of getting to that second bullet point from the way everything works with the JLAC, with us having more direct insight into it, because at one point I did kind of reach out to JLAC and say, hey, walk me through every little detail of what this looks like and otherwise, because we've seen the withholding and when does it turn into lost revenue, that type of thing. So they did explain, and then of course, as I know the letter stated, that there's a 30-day enforcement period, whatever, from when they say, hey, Department of Revenue, turn off the spigot to when. So JLAC kind of advised me that the ramifications would be effectively, if the audit were not complete, May 1st, the faucet's turned off, and then at that point, items are withheld except for the sales tax, which by statute, if a distribution's not made, it kind of goes back into the general fund. So they basically said, hey, if it's done early April, it would be May that there would be an impact when that sales tax distribution took place. So to clarify just on that, from our standpoint, everything we have been told, there's no financial impact from a state funding perspective for this year's audit. We did go back and look at last year's. Again, we're not reached out to by JLAC having any of those communications, and the 22 impacts that would have been last summer, June or July distribution, the $66,000 I know has been discussed. That effectively was in the fiscal year 24 period from that audit. So we did go and just look and kind of confirm that, hey, as we looked and saw that is an accurate statement, just again from our perspective, to confirm that related to the 22 audit timing of when that was issued. From the state's expectations, again, no direct conversations we've had, but just to kind of talk through. June 30th, of course, is the...
Can I ask a question real
Yes.
quick? How late was the 22 audit? I don't think I read that
It was
down.
issued in June.
It was in
either June or
June, so well, almost a year late.
So another
June 20th,
two,
2020.
June 20th, so about 2 months later than this one.
It's still about a year late though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was,
okay.
yeah, it was a year and 3 months late.
A year and
Or,
3
Excuse me. Yeah, because you have 9 months to do it.
So
It
it's,
took like 10 days shy of 2 years.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
yeah, no problem. So for the 24 audit, again, that is the timeline. We'll talk a little bit more, details there. It's again, a quick turnaround in terms of being about that 2 month. We do have a lot of documentation in. Ben will talk through that, kind of the timeline with the clerk's office was May 9th. So I know we've gotten a good chunk, and what we understand, have a lot more that we should have by the end of the week. So the goal is, June 30th or pretty close thereafter, I think, if all goes well. Again, with some of the added focus into it, I feel pretty good about how that will go. We'll see once we get into it. Again, we will be reporting back probably in a similar manner with a weekly update or otherwise. From the how do we avoid this in the future, I did kind of mention early on too that to some degree just the challenge of timely close and otherwise is one that just to kind of share from an industry perspective, where we audit 45 or so municipalities, 12 counties, so we're seeing a pretty good sample size of kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of audits, what goes into the situations where we see delinquent audits or otherwise. From our standpoint too, just to clarify, I know Commissioner Bennett, I think in one of the meetings I overheard you mention, that we had seen each other at the Northeast Regional Council meeting presenting the 24 audit, which kind of aligned with the fact of, we've got the capacity. So, I've seen some smaller firms where they say, hey, we're in tax season, we can't do audits now. We've got a dedicated government team with capacity, so we're ready to do whatever we can do to get things on a good schedule. From a county side or clerk, just finance side, really, and over the last couple of years, just in general terms, we have seen, if you look at like the state data, there's an increasing number of late audits. City side, county side, and otherwise, plenty of them. We actually still have other audits that we are, generally small town, but some audits that we're still waiting on fiscal year 23 trial balances. So as you can imagine, they've got major JLAC issues. So that from an industry standpoint, I think the biggest thing that we've seen is just the requirements and the complexity continue to grow. Smaller governments kind of have a bigger challenge of that. Of all the counties that we audit, 9 are fiscally constrained counties. So this is kind of this sub-niche within the niche where we have seen a lot of, again, not this late, but if I said, how many of those smaller counties were issued, did we get everything and they were completed after June 30th of last year? Out of the 9 fiscally constrained counties, it was probably 3 or 4. I want to say, so not to say that's okay, we can be late, no big deal. That's not all I'm trying to say. But from the challenges that we see in a smaller government, your team, those over the finance function, there's a lot of different hats to wear. And one of the most sustainable solutions that we've seen has been having outside help. I know there were steps taken there. That's part of, I think, where we have a positive feeling in terms of what we're hoping to see for the fiscal year 24 audit. And the way I kind of have looked at it is outside of the day-to-day, there's so much that goes into the hard year-end close from a government accounting standards perspective, outside of just the operational nature. And I believe we had it outlined in there a little bit as well, is just the need for not just outside assistance to kind of say we've got a major crunch on top of the day-to-day to get this year end done, but the challenge I always sometimes see with audit preparation or other things when you've got those smaller governments, if you go to, I don't know the author, I'm not good at quoting authors, but there's a theory out there in terms of 4 quadrants to say what's urgent and what's important, and the audit is one where it's always important, but until you get into this JLAC status, it never sometimes has that urgency, but you need to have, versus say a fire that you're putting out that day, some major issue or otherwise. So from our standpoint, bringing in an outside firm, not just outside assistance, but someone who really specializes in governmental accounting, has that knowledge, is something that we see as a major piece of the puzzle to say, how does everything come together to get this where it is that best in class situation where we're like, look, you guys, we're going to be doing the audit, this week in March and then this week in April for the follow-up, and we're coming to the board at the first meeting in May, or whatever that schedule looks like. As with all the small counties that we work with, we've seen some that have that, some that have started, been in that delinquent phase, but not, say a year delinquent or otherwise, and starting to shift in that direction. And so just from kind of what we see in the industry, having that dedicated resource where it says we have X set aside in the budget to help come in, provide that governmental expertise in the year-end close to get ready for the audit, is something that we wholeheartedly would recommend and suggest the county continue to, again, help hopefully get to that kind of best-in-class status where we do get to say, hey, this audit's like clockwork, because that's where we want to see it. That's what makes it the easiest on our team, just from a burnout perspective and otherwise, and trying to balance all those factors on our side to say, hey, we want to get it done as soon as we can. How do we do that while being fair to the other clients and not burning out our team so we don't have challenges ourselves? So
I have a question with that.
Yeah.
Do the standards change that drastically from year to year?
So the GASB Government Accounting Standards Board, there's a handful of standards. I mean, they probably issue an average of 4 to 5 standards every year.
But is that a major change in the way we do in the requirements of how we handle it?
Not
Because
so.
let me tell you where I'm going with this and why I'm asking my question. I understand and I appreciate the suggestion that we continue to hire outside counsel, but when you look at the dollars, which by the way, we have no clue right now on how much we've actually paid for the outside assistance, right? That's probably going to be a shocking number when we get it. But my question is if it's the same thing year after year after year with just a few everything changes a little bit. Why is it so important that we go out and get outside assistance at well over $100 an hour to do this work? We don't have the capabilities of hiring that. How does most other municipalities handle it, counties?
Yeah, so it's a balancing act in terms of, I think, the day-to-day and then the more kind of GASB high level. I mean, the two big ones we had the last couple of years was a whole revamp of the lease standard, how we account for leases, and then similar on kind of IT related commitments. The best way probably to articulate on that is, I think that the majority of the focus that we see just in smaller government is on the day-to-day inherently when you're wearing a lot of different hats, versus you get to a larger government, you've just got your person, they know GASB, they know how to prepare financial statements, but they don't know, understand the day-to-day. So in some ways it can be not two different skill sets, but two very different areas of kind of focus and expertise. So I think in a smaller government, most of the focus we see is on the day-to-day, and going a step further to say, like the small town side, small city side, we're actually growing our kind of outsourced, fractional CFO finance director type practice, just because there's an even a really big hole for some of those smaller, where you have a town clerk, town manager, they're kind of really a jack of all trades. And I think, we see a lot of situations where people understand just the how-to, and you've had someone there where, a town clerk, they've been running the QuickBooks file for 20 years, so they know how it all works, and they kind of get by, but they don't really have the skill set to do it at a way higher level and get to all of the year-end capital asset reconciliations and other adjustments that go into the financial statements. So again, that's not directly related, just kind of for perspective, what we see in terms of that, high-level accounting for financial statement purposes versus kind of more of an operational focus.
If I remember correctly, when CKH was brought on, they were helping with account reconciliations to begin with, correct?
Yes, I believe there were some. I'm not sure, I don't have the exact scope, but I believe that there was somewhere with some of the reconciliation process, as well as a lot of those being for the year end.
Before the closeout process began? Or was it all part of the same closeout
So
process?
generally part of the same.
Okay.
Do we have any idea how much was done? How many reconciliations had to be adjusted or changed?
Yeah, so I think like CKH, they got involved with in the 23 audit, more of a lot of things to do with grants, some bank recs matters, some various payables, and then I believe fixed assets as well were probably the most major areas. I might have left one or two out, but those are probably the most significant. So year-end grant reconciliations as far as receivables, and is the revenue correct? Does it match expense in places? Fixed assets being correct, and some other payables, and then some bank rec matters. That was probably the most significant areas we saw them help for the 23 audit.
Okay. And that was all the adjusting journal entries that was in the audit?
Yes, because I think those in the audit, adjusting journal entries would have been what we made after we received the initial trial balance.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those were innately given to us by CKH to post from what was originally given.
Okay. Yeah, I see I see where it starts CKH on here.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just curious about the dollar volume of how much had to be adjusted.
The total adjusting journal entries?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm looking at this correct, we're talking about 15.963 million.
So that probably, again, there is a total. So our software does at the very bottom just say, here's the aggregate gross
Debits.
total debits and gross total credits.
Total debits and credits, moving
So
everything
how much
around.
impacted the net income, or
Yeah, and there could be somewhere, I mean, if it's a reclassification, say from an asset to a liability account, that it's only your balance sheet, so it's not a fund balance changed by $15 million
Sure.
or something like that.
But it's within the entirety of our financials. We changed it by almost 16
Correct,
million.
in terms of what were the numbers in ADG
Mhm.
versus what are the numbers in the audit if you grossed up. just
Correct. I mean,
the
you took
gross
your adjusted trial balance,
Yes.
changed it by 16 million to get the final trial balance.
Yes.
Correct.
On what was our total budget? Dollar value? 40-some million?
Was it 40? I couldn't tell you.
Just trying to
Do
figure
y'all
out,
know
I mean,
offhand?
I'm just trying to get in my head a percentage of how much had to be adjusted. That's what I'm just trying to figure out.
I can't pull it up
It's
real
okay.
quick.
Yeah, I mean, the
We'll
best
get
way
to
would
it.
be to kind of go just entry by entry. We'd be glad to help provide some feel for that, but there were a handful of adjustments, and it's the best way to just kind of high level that. So this is kind of as far as I got in the general perspective, we will kind of review just the detail, audit reports, findings, quick look at the numbers. It is one, of course, where you say how relevant are the numbers as of September 30th, 2023. We will still hit it for the record, even though that's, of course, a number of months ago. But I guess any kind of other general high-level process-related questions, anything I want to touch on, or do you guys want to kick it over to Ben to walk through the details?
We gotta move forward. We have a 5 o'clock meeting, so.
All right. Attendance, any questions?
You have one? Yeah. All right, thank you guys. So yeah, again, my name is Ben Clark, and I am the James Moore janitor, also known as the James Moore director. That's a joke. Seeing if you guys are still awake. All right, so as far as the audit report goes for the year ending 2023, on these slides we have 2023 that goes first. A lot of the information from 2022 is probably repeat, but we can go over that. But we wanted to hit 2023 first and then work backwards from there as far as the different types of reports and things of that matter. So just as a reminder, in your overall, the county's overall financial statements, it's going to be made up of 5 different audit reports. So the 5 different reports, I'm going to walk you through here and tell you what they mean and kind of what they are. So the audit report is obviously the biggest one, the one at the top. That's going to be where actually as a firm we're placing our opinion on the financial statements. So the opinion there is what we call a qualified opinion. So keep in mind there's unmodified, qualified, disclaimer, and adverse, I believe. As far as the qualified goes, that usually means there's just something like an exception for. And that's going to be the same as we've had in previous years where OPEB is not taken into account as far as numbers. OPEB is a whole another kind of complicated standard where we're having to kind of record rather an actuarial liability for the post-employment benefits. And so that you would have to engage an actuary and pay an actuary to come up with that number, and that number has been excluded from these kind of financial statements. So just kind of a heads up on that. All the other things in it are under, GAAP as always, and so that's an unmodified opinion on the remaining.
On that issue has popped up in 22, 23, and I'm quite confident it's going to see it in 24.
The qualified
The
opinion.
OPEB.
Yeah, OPEB.
Yeah. So what has to be done to get that resolved?
Yeah, so you would need to hire an actuary. The actuary would have to perform an actuarial analysis, and so you would engage with an actuary, and then they would basically provide us a report. That report would then be recorded as far as the end of your post-employment benefit liability, and then that would be kind of an ongoing thing you'd report every year. So it'd be another kind of liability that you'd have to track in your system and record for that.
Well, we're getting dinged on it every year because it's in the audit. So is that something that should be addressed, or is it an issue, or is it not?
I think Zach probably speak to if there's like an opinion about whether it's worth it or not worth it to engage the actuary. I think we kind of see it both ways. If you, I don't, it's not a finding, so I will say that. But if you want to get an unmodified opinion over the whole thing, you would just need to engage that actuary.
Okay.
Just to quickly kind of chime in, add on that. So the number that you would record is purely theoretical. So I call it an exercise in governmental accounting standards. It has no budgetary impact, no operational. So many of our smaller cities, especially again those that were kind of in that fractional CFO, to me, from a practical standpoint, it's you pay all this money and the report's not worth a whole lot. So we oftentimes will say the state fully accepts it. So if it's a qualified opinion, because you didn't do something the state considers important, that'd be an issue. This one, the state has no issue. So we generally recommend that just to say it's not worth the cost.
You just have to mention it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so as far as the other reports go in the financial statements, so the second kind of bullet there is going to be your single audit report. So because you guys obviously receive over $750,000 in state and or federal funds, and it can be either one of those buckets, you guys were required to have both a federal and a state single audit. So you spent more than $750,000 in federal funds and more than $750,000 in state funds in that fiscal year for 2023. When we kind of do that work, we have to go obviously and look at some of the larger grants, and there's kind of a whole determination of kind of how we determine which grant we have to look at for the single audit and test compliance over it. And when we kind of did all that work, we did not have any actual specific compliance findings over the single audit. So that's a good news for that. The third bullet point down there is what we call internal control and compliance report, and that's going to be in accordance with government auditing standards. And so really what we're doing there is we're required to report to you all if there were any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or other matters that we needed to report under government auditing standards. So one thing to kind of key in is this is not the whole financial statement audit is not an audit over your specific internal controls. However, when we're doing the financial statement audit, we are required to look at internal controls and report on if there are material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that were kind of noted throughout our overall work. And so in kind of doing that, we did have 4 what we call material weaknesses, which are kind of listed in there, and then 1 overall significant deficiency. So the material weaknesses are going to be similar to the 22 audit, if not the same in some ways. The first one has to do with reporting cash to accrual basis audit adjustments and preparing financial statements. So that's kind of a lot of those trial balance matters that we kind of previously discussed, where having to kind of report a bunch of accruals post the original trial balance. The other one in 2023-02 has to be, with some of the things we've already talked about kind of this evening, is the timeliness of the year-end close and financial reporting. So that's going to be kind of captured there as another what we call material weakness. 2023-03 is going to be the timeliness of bank reconciliation. So the idea being that obviously bank reconciliation should be probably buttoned down probably within 45 to 60 days after your year end. We'd probably say is relatively normal. So still having to make adjustments to bank recs and cash kind of during the audit process is probably something we'd say is another area that needs to be kind of remedied kind of going forward. 2023-04 is going to be the preparation of the CFA, so kind of going along with kind of 2023-01 in a lot of ways, but the whole idea being that there really should be a grant schedule that is probably more reconcile the trial balance and doesn't require assistance, kind of during the audit to kind of get to those year-end, kind of grant numbers. So that's kind of captured in 2023-04. And then the last one, page 59, is going to be 2023-05, and that's going to be the same recurring comment that we've had for a couple of years, where the EMS billing system, it's not SOC, what we call SOC compliant. And so really what we look to when we're using kind of an outside entity kind of do EMS billing like that, or other outside entities like payroll or other things, is when we have an outside entity doing something like that, we usually say, hey, let's get your SOC 1 report. It's going to list a bunch of internal controls that then the county would, in theory, provide that kind of go along with the internal controls that they're always doing. And so then they're having an auditor come and look at their internal controls and provide an opinion on that to kind of give to us, so that we know as an auditor that there's proper internal controls around whatever that kind of outsourced function is, if that makes sense. So there was no SOC 1 available during the 23 audit. And so I think because of that, we cannot, we had to put like kind of a significant deficiency down there because of that matter, if that makes sense. The other
Is that
yeah.
the most important one? The significant?
The material weakness would be like the most severe.
Material weakness would be the most important.
Yeah, that'd be most severe.
Which one?
The first four.
The first
First
four.
four.
So you're going to have cash to accrual basis audit adjustments, and preparation of financial statements, timeliness of year-end close, and financial reporting, timeliness of bank reconciliations, and preparation of the schedule of expenditures on federal awards. Right, those four.
It's page 63.
Yeah. Okay.
So the fourth bullet point down there is going to be what we call our Chapter 10 550 Auditor General Report. So as far as that report goes, that is a report that we're required to issue to you all in conjunction with the audit. That's required by the Auditor General under state statutes. This is a report that has kind of some catch-all things that they're requiring us to report to you all. And usually in this report, there's kind of an area where we can provide other matters and comments and recommendations that come up during the audit. So in the 23 audit, we had 3 kind of items that we pointed out in that section on page 66 and kind of flowing into page 67. That was the solid waste fund kind of recurring comment. That has to do with the solid waste fund being kind of not what we call probably self-sustaining, requiring transfers from the general fund to subsidize kind of the operations of the fund. So that's kind of one recurring comment there.
Now, on that particular one,
Sure.
that's really not an issue, is it? It was just to bring our awareness to it, because we were fully aware that the special assessments doesn't cover that. And we've taken the position we're going to fund it from general revenues rather than trying to raise special assessments. So that's that's just bringing it to our attention, but it's not an issue.
Yeah, that's why we don't call it a fine, we call it other recommendations, comments,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Thank you.
2023-07 and 8, those are budgetary comments. 07, the distinction between 07 and 08 is the budgetary compliance aspect is you have to have your total expenditures obviously less than or equal to the total budgetary final budget number. And in this case, there was a handful of funds which are listed in there, EMS, drivers ed, a few others that did not have their expenditures their expenditures were more than what was budgeted. Does that make sense? So, yeah.
Well, that's where I have a real concern with it. If every time it comes before us, we're told we have the budget. Not once have we had something brought before us to approve that we haven't been told we have the budget. So I fail to understand how we get to the end of the year, and then there's findings that we didn't have budget.
Well, and a lot of it too can factor into that year-end close. So keep in mind that the audit is on an accrual basis of accounting, so the budget usually I think has to be amended within 60 days. And so really that year-end budget number does need to be trued up to equal, if there's a big kind of year-end payable or something like that, that would be a factor.
Has to be amended within 60 days of what?
I believe in 60 days of the 9/30 fiscal year. Right?
So are we out of compliance on that? Have we done that?
We haven't done the reconciliation budget yet, and it's well beyond the 60 days, so clearly we're out of compliance with that.
Well, it would be out of compliance if when, like, for instance, in the 24 audit, if the expenditures for a certain fund were more than what was budgeted, then that would be like, this thing would pop up again.
Well, and
Which is
again,
what you're saying here, right? I'm sorry to interrupt. The $1,975,000 for the ARPA fund, That's stating that we overspent it by 1.9, correct?
In that fund, and I'd have to go back and look at the specific details in like our binder for that, but I believe in that one, I can't recall the specifics of how that one was specifically over or not, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that, but yeah, in that case, that would basically mean that ARPA was over budget by that amount, yeah.
This comes to the heart of my question back to county staff as well as the clerk, is how, when we have things brought to us and says, we're asking for approval for this expenditure, every time we ask is, do we have budget? That's always presented, we have budget. So I'm having a hard time understanding how at the end of the year, we've had expenditures that didn't have budget to cover it. I can tell you where I work, there's nothing goes forward with a CPO or anything issued until we confirm there's budget. We do not go over budget. It's just not. So I'm having a hard time understanding
If
that.
I can
So-
ask a question, I think that what I think we're all getting to is the way this is written, it appears that we spent more money than we received from ARPA. That's not true. We just didn't show it on our budget
You're correct,
that we
Sarah.
received the money.
Yes, that
So we
would be a
didn't
good
spend
distinction.
1.9 that we didn't have. We spent our ARPA money in accordance with the budget, and we received it from the federal government. We just need to account for that correctly
In
and
the
receiving
budget.
it as income in our budget.
I believe that, I think I'm following what you're saying.
Right.
That would make sense.
Right, so we didn't overspend it physically, we overspent it on paper.
Basically, like a carryover expenses didn't get.
Right.
So it's basically more of like, we're not documenting in the budget.
Right, does that make sense?
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I still have a hard time understanding that if it was not budgeted, then we've overspent it. If it was budgeted, we budgeted more, we put more in the budget for revenues than what we had income. So something is still not jiving in my.
Is that a note on the financials?
So yes, there is a note just identifying that. From a procedural, how did it happen? You know, what we want to have is the budgetary, controls oversight. You are looking at this in, generally late October, early November. So if a budget amendment is necessary, to Sarah's point, there's nothing in terms of dollars being spent that weren't there. What most of these, I believe, related to is, let's say the ARPA, that was in there 1 year, it wasn't fully spent. Those dollars were still there, but the paper transaction to basically roll forward that budget into the new fiscal year to say these funds did not get spent, they're still available, let's reappropriate them in the budget because they were not in your adopted budget, of course.
But in that case, again, we had money that wasn't spent in 1 year, and it may have rolled forward, but we didn't ask for the budget for the expending them, but yet we spent them anyway.
Correct.
So we spent more than the budget was because we got rolled forward, but we didn't take into account in our budget that we had rolled forward coming to us.
Correct. Which, and I mean, procedurally, when you set the budget, you don't necessarily know how much might not get done before 9:30, but there should be that budget amendment process to say, hey, we are carrying
If we
this
got more
forward.
money and it rolled forward, we should have amended it if we were going to expend it. Otherwise, it should not have been expended.
Correct.
Okay.
I know we are short on time.
Keep going.
Let's go.
So as far as the last bullet point here, so the independent accountants examination report, so that's going to be the report that is mainly to do with your compliance over investments and other matters with regard to that we're required to issue an examination report on. So no non-compliance with regard to anything in that kind of regard, so there's nothing to kind of note there for that report. So that one was pretty simple. So this is a chart to summarize. Obviously, a county audit is not just the Board of County Commissioners or just the clerk's office or other matters. There are other entities kind of involved. And so we did have just kind of a report here to say, like, hey, we've talked in detail kind of on the Board of County Commissioners, whatever material weaknesses exist there, or the significant efficiencies there. But this is kind of a chart to kind of show you how the other audits shook out as far as any other material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or other recommendations go for any of the other entities. So of that, the clerk's office had, one material weakness noted in their standalone audit, and then the other recommendations were 2 for the sheriff. So those totals are kind of listed there for record. As far as the 2022 audit, so I'm not going to, walk you through, obviously, it's kind of some of the same. Go ahead, yeah.
Before we leave 23,
Yeah.
there was responses provided back from the clerk's office on items 2023-01 through 07 on those. Any responses on from the auditing firm on whether those responses were appropriate or okay or not?
As far on the clerk's office audit or the Board of County Commissioners?
Well, it's the commissioners. I'm
Yeah,
focused
because
on the commissioners. Because what I see is the same things repeated from last year is repeated this year, and exactly the same response is given that says, I'll do it next year.
Yeah, so I don't think
And,
I don't think we're engaged to place an opinion on their response. It's kind of management's response, so I think that's kind of disclaimed there. I don't know if you want to speak to that. Zach.
Okay.
That sounds okay, but that's
Well, and again, the reason I'm asking the question is because when I start seeing the same thing year after year, then why is it not getting addressed in the same response? When it talked about accrual, cash to accrual auditing adjustments, the exact same response for the finding happened in 22. Response was given. Same thing was happening in 23. Exactly the same response, and they expect to complete it the next year. Everything's a whole year out before we do anything, and that's why I'm trying to understand: are those appropriate responses or not? Same thing for timeliness at the end of the year. It's, again, we've been with new software, this is 3 years now, and again, we keep saying that the software is a challenge to why we can't get it done. But again, it's the same response for the 22 audit, we got the same response for the 23 audit. And we got the same 22 and 23, same issue with the EMS billing system as well. So I'm seeing a continued pattern, the same thing with the same response, and it's not getting addressed, and that's what I'm trying to understand. Is it okay for us to just continue to ignore them? Because that kind of seems to be the pattern, and I'm trying to understand from an auditing standpoint, what is the perspective on it?
I don't know if I have a response on
Okay.
the auditing perspective. I mean, I think it's management's responses, so it's management's responsibility to provide those responses and say where they're at with things.
Okay.
So I think it'd probably be more of y'all's judgment as far as how you feel about them.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the 2022 audit goes, so similar to the 2023, OPEB is the qualification there, so no need to probably rehash that. You did have a federal and a state single audit for 2022. We did not have any compliance findings in that one either, so very similar to the 23 audit, so that kind of remains the same. As far as the third bullet point down with the internal control and compliance report, that's going to have 2 material weaknesses in that report and then 1 significant deficiency. The 2 material weaknesses were, again, the same kind of cash accrual basis adjustments that were required and the timeliness of the close for those first 2 findings. And then the 2022-03 is the EMS billing system, as far as that goes. As far as the Chapter 10.550 report, that's going to have 2 comments listed in there. And so as far as those go, it's going to be, again, 2022-05 is the solid waste kind of item that we kind of pointed out that we just discussed. And then 04 was, again, the same kind of recurring kind of budgetary compliance matter that we kind of said with the expenditures exceeding the appropriations for the budget. And then the last kind of bullet point there is, again, kind of rehashing that. We did an examination report and no non-compliance kind of noted there.
Keep on.
All right. So we're going to bust through this one. And then as far as the kind of summary, as far as the material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or other recommendations go, you kind of see them listed there. There are 3 total material weaknesses for the county-wide audit, with all constitutional officers included, 1 significant deficiency, and then 2 total other recommendations. And so you can see the kind of chart listed there for that record. And then 1 page here, we won't harp too much on this, but this is kind of one thing we usually like to point out as far as your overall, what we call our fund balances at year end. So these are the same kind of buckets that we put things in last year that the standards require. And so really the kind of theory is at the very top where it says non-spendable all the way down to unassigned. Non-spendable will be like the most restricted. You can't spend the money because it's usually already been spent, like maybe on a prepaid or something like that. And then unassigned would be kind of like everything else, like it's kind of free and clear to use is kind of the way I usually look at it. And so you can see that the total fund balances, going back to even 2020, we put the figures in there, all the way from 9.9 million, all the way up to in 2023, there's 18.1 total fund balance, with 17.2 of that being in the unassigned, kind of free and clear to use bucket. The assigned bucket is the one that's usually kind of restricted, kind of more internally, is the way I like to look at it, along with committed. And then restricted is usually restricted by an outside entity. If that makes sense.
Help me understand that a little bit more. The general funds. You're saying that our balances of funding has gone up by $9 million in the last 3 years?
So this would be the total. So this would be the fund balance, so the assets minus liabilities. So everything that you had left over in all the general funds, not just the Board of County Commissioners, because this would be total general funds in the whole county. The total fund balance at the end of 9/30/2023 was 18.1 million.
So that includes all the other constitutional
That is
officers as
correct.
well. So that's not just,
Yeah, that's correct. And there is a schedule somewhere in your in the Board of County Commissioners, we kind of break out all the general funds, and you can see which one is the counties, sheriffs, clerks, all the things.
okay, thank you.
And then last couple slides here, there is this kind of, we just use this to put this into perspective as far as the total kind of fund balance as far as unassigned and assigned goes versus the total, usually like GFOA recommendation is usually what we say, with that theory being that in this case you all had about 55.8% in unassigned and assigned fund balance versus your total current year expenditures and transfers out. And so that prior year percentage was 49.6%. The GFOA usually recommends a minimum, and it's usually just a minimum of 16.7% of that number, so you're well over that, which is good news. We do say that's a minimum because obviously in coastal areas there's hurricanes and things like that, or natural disasters that can occur, so it's usually prudent to have more than that 16.7%. But just kind of always to point out like where you guys are with your total reserves and things of that matter, that way you kind of know on record where that kind of stands. As far as your other governmental funds and any long-term debt, there were no new debt issuances in the 2023 audit. There was about $44,000 in principal payments, and then up the top we have on record what the other governmental funds were, which is all the other special revenue funds that exist for the overall county, with $7.4 million being in the fund balance for those. A little bit of a decrease from 2023, which those can fluctuate just depending on activity. So about a $3.8 million decrease in 2023. No exceptions noted for any restricted monies being spent improperly or anything else like that. That was nothing really there for the other governmental funds. And we also usually point out to our clients, especially those who are on the FRS system, that in your governmental activity statements there is a large liability you'll see for the Florida Retirement System net pension liability of, in this case, $28 million, 28.8. Just a reminder that that number is kind of like the OPEB number, a little bit out there to say, hey, this is what in theory, is your portion of the overall FRS liability, but the most important thing to you all as the county is, are you making your required contributions? And in this case, that is the case as far as we could tell during the audit. So we didn't note any issues with not making your required contributions, but that liability is almost on there for like just more of a theoretical exercise of putting that on there. And then this last kind of slide here, we put this on a few days ago, so actually this has changed a little bit since Thursday, May 1st, but just in case you guys want to know where the 2024 audit is as far as what's the status there. This is just a little picture from our request list system, SureLink, to kind of show you a little pictorial. This is kind of what it looks like when you log in, and so this kind of shows you of all the entities who kind of with the graph, the yellow being like, hey, it's been given to us. We haven't verified if it's 100% of what we need, but it's been given to us. Green means that somebody on our team has gone in and verified things. I will say that the board and clerk part of it on the very top is probably more like a third or a little bit above a third full versus this was Thursday, so more was obviously uploaded since Thursday, but just wanted you guys to have a kind of a picture graph of that, and then also say that I think that they were talking with their offices, they are targeting May 9th for getting us most of the other uploads. So as far as that goes, that's kind of where it ended for the 2024 audit.
So is that the only, what's outstanding right now? Or you don't know right now what's outstanding?
As on the Which section?
Well, I'm saying, I mean, you got everybody on here right now. Has everybody submitted?
Yeah,
as
so
of
on
yet,
the-
other than the clerk and
Yeah, so I do have
board, or-
like, yeah, so on all the entities are, I think closer to 100%, except the board and clerk, probably more on the, like, closer to a third, if I were to go and, pull this up right now.
I've verified with all the other constitutional officers that all of their information has been submitted. The last one as of yesterday, so all the other constitutional officers have submitted all their information. Now, you may have questions that come up, but the initial draft has all been submitted by each constitutional officer.
Okay.
Other than that, I think that is the end of our slides. So I think if you guys have any more questions, we can answer more. But otherwise, we appreciate you all, and we do thank you for taking the time. I know this is a longer meeting than normal, but we're always here if you have questions.
Mr. Chairman, we do need a motion to accept these. I did confirm with Rich when we prepared the agenda that listing this on the agenda the way that we have, you all can make that motion as part of this workshop, which is why it's not on the agenda. If it's not the desire to do that now, just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that if there was a motion to accept.
A motion in a workshop?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, he can. You can. I confirmed that with Mr. Commando before we prepared the agenda.
Unless there's a reason, I prefer doing that during the regular meeting, so it's not in a workshop. I understand that if they send that, but I think it's going to be much cleaner if we do it, if we can do it in the regular meeting. I've not heard of taking actions in a workshop.
Before we jump to that, I have a question real quick. So if we hit the May 9th and get everything back by May 9th, we're still shooting for the June 30th?
We're shooting for it.
Shooting for it.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that'll depend on the quality of information that they receive.
Okay.
That's, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, but it all depends on the quality of the information that you receive and whether it's accurate or not.
And that's and that's what we're working with CKH at this point to get it all over to y'all, correct?
Yeah, that's our understanding. Yes.
Okay.
There's usually it takes about 6 to 8 weeks if you were to receive everything perfectly, to kind of get a turnaround with going into review and having our team audit it. So there is a little bit of a turnaround time that it takes to kind of do this stuff. It's not lights on, lights off. So, but we're going to do our best.
6 to 8 weeks is cutting it close, but I mean, we're still shooting for it.
We're going to do our best, yeah.
Okay.
Workshop closed.
Rock and roll.
Thank y'all.
Thanks. We'll see you guys in a few months.
2 months.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank
we're going
you.
to recess for just a brief
We're
moment.
going to recess 5:15.
Thank you.
We'll bring the Baker County Board of County Commissioners meeting into order. I'd ask if you have a cell phone or anything that makes noise, please put it on silent. And with that, we have a special guest this afternoon, and I'm going to let Commissioner Mann introduce him.
We're honored to have Pastor, brother in Christ, Vic Givens here to ask opening prayer for us today. And I'll lead us in the pledge once he's finished. Vic?
Heavenly Father, once again, we come and honor you and tell you thank you for just being so good and so kind to us. Lord, we ask you right now for clarity even in this meeting. We ask you to bless our hearts and bless our mind. Give us an understanding what we need to do. We ask you to bless us. Lord, we ask you to keep us. In your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Also, I want to make an announcement for the visitors. If you want to speak to the in the public comment section, if you would fill out a speaker card that's on the table by the fire chief over there. He'll hand you one, get it to Miss Sarah or Kayla, and then they'll get it to me, and then I'll let you speak at the appropriate time during the agenda. And with that, we'll look at overlook the agenda, and is there any items that needs to be removed or?
Yes. I move we remove the review of the minutes until the county staff and the clerk can review those minutes and address that at a later time.
Also, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the acceptance of the audits, we probably want to add that. I'm okay to add it to the consent agenda.
Because it's not on the agenda, can we just put it as item number 8 under new
Sure.
business?
Item number 8, accept the audits. Okay.
I make a motion we approve the agenda with the 2 items adjusted as discussed.
Second.
A motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, approval of the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve with changes.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move into our elected officials part of the, I see the sheriff and the man there beyond the property appraiser that everybody loves so much.
They do love me. We just wanted to come up here and tell you about our senior fish fry that's coming up on May the 22nd, to let you all be aware of it. Tim and them went fishing last week. We had a good turnout of fish. I think we got a count now, a little over 2,000 fish we cleaned and ready to go to be cooked. And just any questions you got about that, we just want to remind you, invite you. And it's a good day for our seniors, and they look forward to it, and we look forward to hosting it for them, because it puts a smile on their face, which puts a smile on mine when I see it.
Did you say what time?
The doors open at 11.
Doors
Food
open
served at
11.
12.
12 o'clock will be served.
Baker County Fairgrounds.
Baker County Fairgrounds.
And all of the public notices will go out tomorrow.
Okay.
I would-
Notices it-
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would also, for those that use the Baker County Council on Aging Services as well, most likely the bus systems will not be running that day because they will use those buses to do a lot of transport of senior citizens. So if you do depend on it, you may want to double check to see if they're going to be running that day.
We'll actually start cooking about 8 o'clock. We'll set our cookers up 6:30, 7-ish, and then we'll start cooking about 8 o'clock because we feed about 120 homebound. So about 10 o'clock, anybody that wants to come, help serve, fix plates, we'll start getting them out on the road by 10 and 30-ish, to go into the homebound. And then after that, we'll start cooking for the rest of it. But anybody that wants to come, participate, you're more than welcome. Most of the constitutional officers, we buy something to raffle to raffle off, and they really love that stuff. You don't have to, but certainly if you want to participate, I mean, we do.
They'll get a list from me tomorrow on what we need from them.
$25, about $25 for each one.
Some do gift cards, some do cakes. We raffle cakes, we raffle whatever that you bring. We'll raffle it off and announce it and give it to them. They enjoy it. They like it.
It's a good day. Very good.
I just want to say, Tim, I know you're one of the head leaders in this, and we appreciate what you
Amen.
do. We really do appreciate it.
I got to teach him how to fish.
You teach them.
You stay focused on the cooking.
Yeah.
All right? We'd rather make sure you cook rather than
If you
fish.
took me fishing, you would be starving to death. That's all I got to tell you. And
Well,
then,
we do have a lot of good folks that donate besides that go
Yeah.
to me, but Mr. Mark and Miss Betty Taylor,
Yeah.
they gave like 500 something this year that they went to do. Mr.
Yeah.
Leo, you know, all those different
lot of people in
guys.
the
you know, a
community.
lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Tim Hodge, I mean, they all come. Tim Johnson came this year. Mr. Mike Green, you know, a lot of those folks, they come. John Holton, I mean, he works for him, but I mean, he goes, you know, catches fish all the time. And
Yes,
I'm
he
sure I'm
does.
missing some, but I mean, it's a community effort. So, yeah.
well, we
It's a good day.
we
Those
appreciate it,
guys-
and I won't make this time. I'll be 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be leaving the country, so.
Yeah. Anybody wants to come help? I'm more than
Love to
glad.
have you.
Sheriff, would you like to make a announcement on your thing for Thursday night also while you at the
Yes,
podium?
we're having our law enforcement memorial this Thursday at CFT. We start that at 6:30. We'd love to have y'all there also for that. We send out invitations, but personally like to invite each one of you and anybody in the community. 6:30 at CFT. It's a great thing that we do, and remembering the officers, fallen officers. Okay, love to have y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Any other constitutionals? I just don't see you anymore, so we'll move into our public comment section, and I have Mr. Troy Stegall. Come on, Troy.
Good evening, everybody. Sure, not you.
Go your cell phone.
Good evening, everybody. Number one, I just want to say I appreciate y'all. For Margaretta, I really appreciate y'all. It working 100%. After the posters got put down, it worked. But I am coming to you again. By the park, we need it. I was there at coming out the churchway. 3 vehicles, bust the sign, didn't even wait on me. If I had my tractor, I wanted to just pull it. I can't do it. Get in here, where you at? Get in here.
You got a preacher sitting there behind you.
Prayer for the brother. But yes, we need it, and I'm requesting for it right there at the park. Summer coming, and you can hear them want to get over it, but by the time they get there, it's like, I mean, they slamming on brakes, and then you see one jumping up, bam, the next one, they done slowed up. So it works. So I'm just asking for that, to finish it out. And I heard that some stuff got started, but I didn't do it, okay?
Yeah.
But I thank y'all, and this is what I'm asking for.
What I'd ask, Sarah, if you don't mind, get with Robert and find out what it would take to add that additional one there, since we know what, we put 4 in, right? If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, it was 4 that we put in. We had to add some posts to make it function so people didn't go around them and things.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, check and see what it would take for doing that,
Yes, sir.
doing
Certainly.
that last one, and let us, then come back to the board for us to get information, to get a direction then.
Thank y'all, thank y'all.
Thank you, Troy.
And recognize Chris and the county road department
There's
for
Chris.
the job they've done with that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. We have a public hearing. We'll start it at 6 o'clock, so we're gonna try to move through these items as quick as we can. And any more public comments? I have no more speaker cards, so we're moving to item number 1, which is the grant acceptance for EMS matching ventilators. Mr. Nelson, Chief.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. This is to just accept the grant that we applied for Department of Health, 4 Hamilton T1 ventilators. That would give us 1 for each of the primary rescues and then 1 for a backup rescue. The total cost would be $67,000. And the county's match on that would be, I've got it right here, $6,700. So 10% of it, we do have the money in our budget. We had put in $10,000 for grants, so we have the money there. It just needs to be approved so we can move forward on getting these muchly needed ventilators.
What's the lead time on these, Chief? Is it like everything else?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I didn't look at it's probably on the sheet, honestly, I would say.
And that includes training with the equipment?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The gentleman will come and do a full training with us. It says 60 days.
Okay.
So,
Which
then
means
he'll come
120 days.
Okay. Okay. Oh.
It's 60 days, but it means 120.
Oh, yes,
It's
sir.
usually double.
Gotcha.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I move we accept the grant and provide the matching funds.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Chief, you're still on board?
Yes, sir. The second thing is to move forward on the EMS Week proclamation. And we normally we read these.
Yes.
So,
Commissioner, Mr. Commando.
Sir. Sorry. I'll explain why in a second as to why I'm running behind. To designate the week of May 18th to 24th, 2025 as Emergency Medical Services Week, this year's theme, We Care for Everyone. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service. And whereas the members of emergency medical teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality health care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, chiefs, and others. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, Oliver J. Anderson, Chairperson of the County Commission of Baker County, Florida, in recognition of this event, does hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to the 24th of 2025 as Emergency Medical Services Week, with the theme, We Care for Everyone, and encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
You have any more statements?
we appreciate your support, the workers in Fire Rescue Department. And this is also covers the hospital emergency room. We appreciate the support from the board and providing things that you do.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Well, as far as the board, we appreciate the EMS and what the EMS and fire, what they do for the community, not only our community, but communities in the surrounding. I've heard some stories about where we had to cross over and do some things, which I've heard nothing but good and positive, and it means a lot that our community is helping other communities also.
Yes, sir. And honestly, in the last 2 weeks, there is for sure a man that was not living that's alive today.
Yeah.
From the efforts of our personnel.
I agree. And I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the EMS Week proclamation.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving right along. Fire chief, you on?
The third thing is Project 2024-15, which is the second story remodel and completion for Station 50. It was competitively bid, and low bidder was Plum Level Construction. You'll see a bid sheet on the page, second page, for $376,445. at the bid opening on April 10th. We're asking for you to approve the project award, which will allow the county manager to execute the contract. We have a state appropriation for $450,000, and also the county has a match of $50,000. There's some things that we'll need to do, some equipment and stuff like that. But it was a competitive bid. There were 4 bidders. There were 5 that did the walkthrough, and we ended up with 4 bidders.
Motion favors board. Which fire station is this? Glen.
Yeah, it's just a shell right now. The only thing there is insulation, basically.
So it's just completing
Completion.
Yes.
that part of it?
Yes.
And it's a design build. Obviously, when we get the design part finished, we'll send that out to get a secondary review through our processes in the county before we move forward on the project.
How's it design build? How did they bid on something if they don't know what they're going to build?
We had a preliminary conceptual plan that we provided to the state through the appropriations process, and then we had a list of equipment and requirements that it would include.
Okay, so are we adding more offices or anything else, or this is supposed to be a training room upstairs? So what are we?
It's mostly just training and educational space. Yes, sir. There's a gym for staff, and there may be some office space just for writing reports and things like that, but not for staff to be in full time.
Okay, I'd like to see the concept and what's going on, because I know it's an appropriation, but on the same token, we don't need to be putting something that we got to deal and maintain so much, because the entire purpose of that second story, because if you recall, we cut that was cut down to 1 story was the proposal. I pushed to make sure we build it back out for being able to do this down the road for training purposes,
Yes, sir.
and for it to be used for whatever other needed. I just don't want to make sure that it now don't get chopped up into a bunch of additional small offices, because we're adding a bunch of offices and things. It needs to make sure it's kept with the intent of what it was intended for, and that's a large training room for being able to provide training as necessary.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
It's a
sir.
training room, an EMS lab,
Fitness
fitness area.
And then 1 small office. And
1 small office and a bathroom. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we've got 500 in this?
Yes, sir.
50.
550.
500 total.
Yeah, I'm sorry, total. We
Total, I mean, you got 450
total.
in state appropriation, 50 in our budget to do it, and we're proposing spending 376 on a conceptual plan right now, right?
That was for the construction as well.
For it.
Yes, sir. That's for a design build, the 376. So this will
What are we
complete.
gonna do with the remainder of 130?
We are going to find something else to spend it on and bring it back to you all for approval. There's some equipment and things that we could be buying, but of
Like
course.
the EMS lab,
Yeah.
there's mannequins that are lifelike that actually we want to set up that have our crews to practice at all times. That way they don't have to take it down during training, because we'll have a small EMS lab set up for that. It'll be lifelike. It'll be, so those are pretty pricey, some of those. So those are some things that we'll bring back.
Need to be sure that the appropriation covers that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Need to be sure that we don't need to go down a path where we've expended something and once it's reviewed that is determined that it's not eligible, and then we have to eat that cost ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't count towards mats or thing as well. So you've got to have $500,000 worth of eligible expenditures, of which 450 is coming from the state and the other 50 of eligible expenditures from us. So we need to make certain that that's covered, because it was supposed to be a build out of that facility. I don't know that it included all the training equipment, but you'll need to double check that.
Yes, sir.
When did you say you expect to start on that?
I know that he had give us about 5 months to be complete, was whenever was what was in the contract of the bid documents, that he had about 5 months he would have it done.
But you still gotta go to our office to design it, basically, and do the
Yeah, once he
plan.
gets the certain engineer plans and everything, which there's not much engineering to do it's already, the structure's already built.
Right.
So,
Right.
Just-
This is the contractor that's doing the work on the extension office for us currently, and they've done a great job of getting started pretty quickly after contract signings. He has not provided an actual start date, obviously, because we've not signed a contract yet, but they're eager to get going, and they're in the area already working.
Basically, the only thing will be engineered is the bathroom.
Yes.
The rest of it's under structure.
Well, the complete second floor sprinkler system,
That's not in.
it's not in yet. And that's a large part of it.
That's a large part of your money.
Yeah, that's what the majority of it will be.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad we talked about it and brought that out.
Yep.
I was thinking that was a lot for a training room.
Yeah. All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve project 2024-15.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I got plenty of time. All right.
One more thing.
EMS transport fees.
Yes, this is just coming back to you for approval. We discussed it at the last meeting. The transport fees, we showed you the list of 17 other counties in Florida, and how that we wanted to actually get up towards the average of based on the fee schedule I put in the documents. And some of them we were close, like on the mileage, we were right at $14 a mile. And that's pretty close to the average statewide, but some of them we were between 32 and 66% below average. So we just want to get up to what the average is. We don't want to get near the high, but we do want to get to the average. And they're all based on different types of treatments and transports and things like that. That's why there's different numbers based on if it's a basic life support call or an advanced life support call, or if we do multiple treatments and things. So that's why there's different dollar amounts. So.
Questions or comments?
So what are you proposing?
So
I've got a lot of stuff here, but I'm not sure exactly what's being proposed here.
So to move from on ALS 1 to $700, and then ALS 1 EMT, NEMT $650, ALS 2 $850, and ALS 3 is $950, BLS 1 is $600, BLS 1 with NEMT is $550, and then the mileage to 14 cents a mile. And if you look at the average, you can see it on that we would be right at within 1 to 5% of the average between the 17 counties.
Mr. Chairman, for me?
Yes.
I don't have a problem with maxing the fees out, but I guess my question is, why are we so focused on this? The last we checked, we were doing like 3, maybe 5 transports all.
This is all our, every transport that we take to the hospital. Not just.
Okay,
not
okay, it's not
facilities.
interfacility transport, this is anyone that we run.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
About 24
Okay, I was,
calls.
okay. I was thinking this was referring to interfacility transport. I'm like, well, why we're not doing any, so why are we spending time doing this? Okay, this is everything.
When will these fees take place?
As soon as you approve it, I'll send it to the billing company and it'll get changed.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve the increases.
I'll second it.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
One question while you're here. This is really for Sarah, but since you're here, I do want, Sarah, us to have a follow-up conversation about the EMS billing. That's been a finding in the audits for, that we're aware of 2 years in a row now. That needs to be addressed.
Yes,
So it's going to be a finding of 3rd year in this audit that's about to come out, because we've done nothing. But I want to make sure that we are not in that position come next year. So whatever we need to do, we need to get that issue resolved. I'm telling you, when you have audit findings that are ignored for multiple years, it's a bad sign. And that's one that we, since you pushed very strongly to have a outside billing company handle this, then we need to make sure we get that addressed.
Yes, sir, certainly.
Thanks.
And Commissioner, may I, their contract is due to be renewed in October, so we can make sure that that's.
We've had those conversations, Commissioner, but certainly it's on our radar as well.
Well, October 1's a new starts a new fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
So we need to make sure for that fiscal year, we getting it right.
Yes, sir.
because we already have another one that's,
Thank you.
we're going to
Sure.
have 4 years in a row that this is going to be on there because it was for, anyway.
Okay. Item number 5, emergency management, update John Blanchard.
Or Dennis.
We got 15 minutes. You got it,
I'll
brother?
keep you on your schedule, Trevor. So right off the rip, Director Blanchard, at the very last moment tonight, got called away, is not able to attend. He asked me to present to the board a request to accept the bid for the 911 maintenance. He came before the board sometime in the past, requested it. We were awarded on 4/17, an amount of $10,421.
Let's do the emergency management update first. That's what you were up for. John Blanchard was up for.
That's the next item, Dennis.
My apologies.
We have to go in order of.
Yes, sir.
He said it was
All
quick.
right.
He was moving right on.
I'm trying to meet
I don't mind you being quick, but we can't jump ahead.
Alrighty, so you have a couple of slides that I present to you. We're just going to shoot down. Here's the nutshell of all of it. We got really good news for the board this week and for our citizens this week. So we referenced at the last meeting that we had replaced some FEMA personnel. The replacement person that's coming has done a fantastic job of really working with the county, understanding what we're doing. And so I'm going to go through the projects kind of just in order and just give you an update of where we are. So the see the very first program, the project 796315, that project has not yet been submitted. That is for the remainder of it says 94 roads there. It's going to work out to be somewhere between 25 and 67 roads. But this is work that we've already done right after the storm to go in and repair our roads and get them passable again. It's been on hold because of some of those problems with that FEMA personnel, and so it's very close to us moving forward. Chris and Jason and Sarah, all of us were working with FEMA last week to put together with our GIS folks a template for them to go by for one project, and when that PDMG signs off on it, we're going to apply that template to these 94 roads. We're anticipating that to be sometime in the next 2 weeks. The second project, 796550, is the boat ramp. Nothing's really changed there except that project had gone through what's called the CRC and been costed, and it costed at less than 50% of what we experienced the last time we repaired the boat ramp, but it's definitely less than 50% of what we're proposing for the new work to be done. So the update is we have requested, and with FDEM's assistance, are sending that project back to FEMA to have them recost it with some taking into consideration some clarifications that we asked for them. So we're looking for some guidance on exactly why they were so far off on the numbers, and they've agreed that we're sending that back up basically to the leadership level. We have to go one level up to FDEM and to FEMA, and we're hoping to get those recosted.
I mean, what can we do to get this thing open?
We're in the same boat.
We're not in a boat because we can't launch it.
The bids are due on the
So, what do we
29th of
gotta
May,
do?
and hopefully we will have an
When the
answer to
RFPs
address
come
that on
back,
the
that's our
29th.
first step
Lord
to
have
get there.
mercy.
So
Yeah.
we're trying level, but we want to make sure that we're not footing the bill for it all
All right,
100%.
all right, I'm good.
Project number 796552, that is the Shoals Beach, exact same scenario. That CRC costed that project out at less than 50% of what our engineer estimated that cost to be. Let me also say this, that with the RFPs that are coming in at the end of May, that's also going to take all the estimates out of the equation, and now we'll be working off of quotes or proposals, bids. So that's also going to help us in the process as well. The next project, 796996, which is the Turner Cemetery Bridge. So this project, we're doing the same thing except it's one step earlier. So they came back again at 50% of what we had suggested, but it had not yet made it to what they call HMP, which is the mitigation side. So this one, we kicked it back. We didn't have to go ask for permissions and the leadership. And the new PDMG came in, we completely, again, explained to them what the county's wishes were. And truthfully, on this project, what we're wanting to do is cheaper with the mitigation by putting the box culverts, the concrete box culverts in, is cheaper than what the rebuild would be. So again, it's back in that system, and we're actually expecting that one to get moved farther down the process quicker than the other two that are going up to FDEM. 797000 Steel Bridge Road. Good news on that one. And so if you look at those numbers, so that up until now the numbers have been off that you've got on the right hand side of your screen there. And just in case you to explain it, the best cost available, that's what we're proposing, and then it's what the CRC is proposing on the other side, so there's some significant difference there. But on the Steel Bridge Road, that was a project that we started with the new FEMA personnel, the new PDMG, and so that number, that $460,436 matches what our numbers match. So it's the only one there, and it's, again, another sign that we've got the right person in the right spot helping the county out, trying to move these projects forward. 797012, so that's the box culvert on Copper Creek. Where we are there, so the road department is working with a contractor that had come in after Irma, I'm assuming, and given an estimate for that damage that we talked about that doesn't qualify for Debbie. And so what we're very specifically attempting to do is identify what the dollar value was right before Debbie, and then what the dollar value of the damage is now. And so we've got clean numbers to send to FEMA. They had estimated at $73,000. We're not sure where that number is going to come in, but we also able to identify some documentation and pictures of like the damage to the guardrail, which we got submitted today. So we're hopeful that that number is going to come up, but as we kind of mentioned a couple of months ago, or a couple of meetings ago, this one's the lion's share. This is going to be on the county, not on FEMA for reimbursement. Project number 801416. That's one that's already obligated. So again, $67,000 FEMA share. That's $50,860. That's checks in the mail, they say. Project number 817936. So this was part of that complicated process with our 294 roads. We had to separate any road that had a culvert on it. And so this is the template, this is the go-by that we're using that we submitted today for FEMA to approve. And once that project is approved, then we're going to mirror that for the rest of the roads. And we're very hopeful because the road department, hats off to the road department and Chris and those guys, because they came back after the fact and really did a fantastic job of documenting, because that's really what it's all about. FEMA just is infinitely drilled down on how much detailed documentation you have, and so the road department was able to get together and go back and kind of recreate those documents to make sure that they've met FEMA's expectations, and we're excited that that's going to move forward fairly quickly. And that number we're looking at to be somewhere around $27,599. One more that you guys don't have on there, just because we haven't gotten there yet, and that's for the Hurricane Helene. Some time ago, we talked about whether or not some documentation, how much we were going to have, and at the time, I think we were looking at about $15,000 was what the fire department, the chiefs had given us for numbers. Well, I'm kind of happy to report now that that number of reimbursable monies coming back to the county is now at about $46,000. Through some additional documentation from the county finance folks, from Sarah and her assistants. So that's $46,000. There's also addition this week, if we can get a little bit more documentation from the chiefs, that number may go all the way up to $57,000. So excited that we've captured more reimbursable money than what we initially thought we were going to get, and that's a really good thing for the county. The last element I have on the updates is we mentioned the homeless folks. The last time we were here, we had the Jewish families and communities in. We're still moving forward that. So just to let the board know that all of those folks who were in the hotels temporarily are now gone. But because of what's happening right now in Washington with FEMA, we've lost a lot of our FEMA personnel. And so we literally have a vacancy right now. And what we're really looking to do is to gather some information about, we initially had 99 families that were in the hotels. We didn't find out about it, and we're only able to attract 26 families. So what we're really looking to do is now get some information from FEMA to find out what about the other 70 families? What happened to them? Where are they? What are their needs? And unfortunately, I don't have good news to report to the board just because we don't have the FEMA personnel in place. It's almost like they're called voluntary agency liaisons. It's almost like they all dried up and went away because there's no response to emails, no response to phone calls. We're hopeful that this week, Thursday, that it'll change. We've got one of the high vows coming from Washington, D.C. that should be at the meeting for our co-ed on Thursday. But I just want to let the board know we're still moving forward, still tracking those unmet needs from the folks who suffered through all three of the storms, and still working diligently to see what we can provide for our resources. With that being said, now back up one step and go to Director Blanchard's.
All right.
Unless you have any questions. So Director Blanchard asked me again to propose to the board that we accept the grant that we were awarded on the 17th of April, the amount of $10,421.04. They'll be forwarding a copy of the contract to the board for signature ultimately, but it's just looking for.
This is the annual spring E911 grant that we receive twice a year.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for your quick report.
Thank you.
I have 7 minutes. I had Mr. Tim Sweat wanted to make another announcement or something to the board, so I'm gonna give him time
Sorry, I forgot what it was.
so he can go home.
For our budget, for our office, the state always pays for the aerial photography. So we got the senator and we got the representative to present that. It's in the Senate side, it's not in the House side at this point, so the two budgets have to come together. They're in break this week, but they'll start back next week in the session. So if you can talk to Representative Brannon or whatever, I texted him earlier, it's not in the House side, it's in the Senate side. And we talked to the governor's office as well. And basically, they don't fund counties normally under 75 or 50,000. They changed that a few years ago. But we've always been able to get it into their budget without us having to pay it. So that's one thing that we're lobbying and going. Mr. Chris Doolin may be a good resource there to talk to some of them.
What's the bill?
So that's
Is there a bill?
Sir?
What's the Senate bill?
It's in the Senate side of
What's
the
the
budget.
bill number? Is it in a bill?
It's not a bill form. They put it into the budget, actually. It's
Like
not
an appropriation.
Appropriations.
I can reach out to
Appropriations.
Mr.
But
Doolin's
it's in the
office and
Senate
Senator
side of the
Bradley.
appropriations, it's not in the House side at this point. But they're negotiating now, so now's a good time to reach out. It's a good number too. There's 4 or 5 counties about the same size that, we got, I got Chuck to put it in and I got Miss Bradley to put it in, but they're still kind of arguing about it, right now between them
Just
and
make sure
I
that
can. I'll take care of
SAC
it.
knows
it's
about it too.
it's a pretty good number, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good number, so, yeah. The other side, what, the fellow that was just up here talking about, in our office, just to let y'all know what we're doing, we're building a GIS layer that will eventually be just for the road department with information that we're gathering, everything that we can gather, bridges, culverts, all those things, and we're in the process of building that now. It'll take a while because we don't just stay on that, but at some point in time, hopefully in the near future, we'll have if they have a person that can go on there, we'll have a license for them, and they can be able to go say, well, that flooded so-and-so, or that did this, and so we're just working on that to try to help them, anything we can do to get it done, so hopefully, later on, we'll be able to, to manage it, so.
Appreciate it.
Anyway, but that funding is very important, so we've never paid it before, they've always paid it, so it's kind of they got the Senate and the House is fighting with the governor, and so everybody's kind of, ain't nobody liking each other there right now, so. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a 4-minute recess for a public hearing at 6 o'clock. go back into our regular board meeting, and then we're going to start our public hearing. We have 10 items on the meeting tonight.
We've got the first two. Yeah.
Are we
Number
gonna take
one,
the first
I'll cover, Mr. Chairman, and number two, I think Commissioner Bennett's going to
Okay.
take the lead on that one, if that's
I'm
okay.
so used to her bouncing up there.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
It's not my turn yet.
Well, I'm sorry. Hallelujah.
With that being said, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to proceed?
Yeah, please.
All right, so
Or I
the
get in
first,
trouble.
the first item on your public hearing agenda tonight is Resolution 2025-07. We've actually discussed this quite frequently over the last several months. This is an interlocal agreement between Baker County, the City of McClenny, and the Town of Glen St. Mary. This interlocal agreement extends our current fuel tax distribution rates. There were no changes to those rates as they have existed for about the last 20 years, with Baker County receiving 86%, the City of McClenny at 13%, and Glen St. Mary at 1%. This resolution does extend those rates for a period of 10 years. In addition to that, it also identifies that should the additional local option fuel tax be passed, which is item number 2 tonight, that rate would be calculated at 100% to Baker County. Again, we've discussed this at length over the last several weeks. If there are any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but that is it in a summary.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
The city of Glen and the city of McClenny have agreed to those.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so does anyone in the public have anything on the resolution 2025-07? Any public comments? Any board have any comments? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve Resolution 2025-07, read by title.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Commando?
Yes, sir. Resolution 2025-7, a resolution providing for the distribution of local option gas taxes among Baker County, the City of McClenny, and the Town of Glen St. Mary pursuant to Section 336.025 Florida statutes, providing for severability, providing for repeal of conflicting resolutions, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing, going into regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go back into our public hearing. Item number 2, ordinance 2025-05. Who's handling this one?
I think Commissioner Bennett.
Commissioner?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. This is one that we discussed some time ago. We had the first hearing, I think, a month or so
Hey, our
ago,
first meeting
and
in
we
April,
did
yes.
the workshop and discussed this even prior to that. And this is really kind of bringing us up to speed where most of the counties around us are with the second 5-cent local option gas tax. We understand there are some restrictions on what you can use it for, really predominantly for improvements, but again, understand where we're at with the county. I still encourage consideration for support for this. As you're aware, this is only paid for from the gas tax, or excuse me, the gas tax goes for roads here. All of our roads and things are funded by gas tax only. There is no other funding source. It is a restricted fund, and it only goes for that. The nice thing about this, in my opinion, is the only ones that's paying this are the ones that's driving. Right? It's as simple as that. We always talk about fair taxes and what is fair and what's not. The only ones that's having to pay to maintain the roads are the ones that's driving the roads. The other side of this, I think, is really a positive, is the fact that while a lot of people pass through here on Interstate 10, every time they get off and get gas at one of the many gas stations along the corridor, they're helping pay for these roads. They're paying for these funds, so that's a huge plus as well. And so I've been a proponent, for those that have been around here any time of any length, I've been a proponent for this. I do believe it's the appropriate way to help fund transportation infrastructure, and it's clear that we need that. You take a look at some of our county roads. We've got many paved roads that are in very poor condition, that needs work done on them, and we simply do not have the funding to be able to do it. We had another request tonight to look at a safety project over in Margaretta to add some additional safety improvements there. That's coming straight out of our county funding that we try to put some money aside for emergencies out of that cash reserves from the gas tax. So Again, I think it's a really good way to try to fund transportation. All the counties around us already have the local option passed, so it's not giving us an unfair disadvantage over other counties. They've already passed them all the way around. So to me, I'm going to encourage the commissioners to consider passing it with that. And so I'm glad if there's other conversations, that's great. If not, I'm glad to put a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2025-07, read by title.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. This is a public meeting, so anyone in the public have anything on the ordinance 2025-05? Any comments? I have a motion and a second, Commissioner Commander. I didn't give you no, you got a demotion.
Yeah, so y'all deal with a lot of stuff I don't want to deal with, so. Ordinance 2025-5, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending Chapter 38 taxation, specifically creating Section 38-6, a 1 to 5 cent local option fuel tax, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our regular or public hearing, our regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Close our regular meeting, back in our public hearing. I'm scared to ask.
Now it's my turn.
Okay.
I'm very much a scheduled person.
I know you are.
You
That's
got
what
me
you know.
off my schedule here.
Well, you
so.
made me nervous.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. Everything I have for you tonight is second reading. We heard all of them a couple weeks ago. Pretty much everything I have tonight has companion items, so if it is okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I will present all companions together.
Yes.
Alrighty. So the first group of companions I have for you tonight is for ordinance number 2025-09, a small-scale land use amendment with a request of Agriculture B to very low-density residential, with a companion for ordinance number 2025-10, a rezoning with the request of Ag 7.5 to residential, conventional, and mobile home 2.5, as well as ordinance number 2025-11, a rezoning with a request of Agriculture 7.5 to Agriculture 5. This is a 7.5 acre parcel located on 121 North. The current owners is Evergreen Home Buyers. The current land use is Ag B, current zoning Ag 7.5. This request, so currently the parcel is compliant. It contains one site-built home. It would be the intention of the property owners to subdivide this parcel and create two separate parcels. The parcel has not been previously split, so they would be allowed that one split to create two parcels. One of those parcels would be 2.5 acres, and the site-built home would remain with that 2.5 acres. The secondary parcel would be a vacant 5-acre parcel that could in the future sustain one site-built home. So the rezoning request that you see for RCMH 2.5 would be where the site-built home is now, and the request of Ag 5 would be with the additional acreage. So 121 North along there, it is kind of a mixture of land use and zonings. You can tell from the maps. There is a lot of Ag 7.5 with that Ag Zone B, but if you look at those parcels, there's a wide variety of shapes and sizes. And we also have some industrial, some commercial, and some very low-density residential right there at the intersection of County Road 23C. It's almost a transitional area for a little bit of everything. So again, the parcel now, the way it sits, is compliant with all current standards. This request is just to prepare this lot for the future and their future intent. Staff recommends approval, and LPA recommends approval as well.
Just for full transparency, both, this is not an individual property owner, this is a company who owns this, and it would be their intention to sell both of these lots. And an agent is here on behalf of the owner, so if you have any questions for me or for them.
Just to make sure I'm fully clear, they're gonna divide the lots. One of them already has a home on it, so that one would just be sold, there'd be nothing else added to it.
Yes.
And you would, the second lot is where they'd have another dwelling on it.
Yes.
So in essence, this overall process for changing land use and zoning is really simply allowing one additional
It would-
residence.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that's why you're seeing two different zoning requests. Instead of just the RCMH 2.5 for the whole thing, it was not their intention to add any more than one site-built home, so.
Did we clarify that wetland? Is that a wetland? Is there gonna be an impact there? It's not shown on
It's
the
not
map.
in the flood zone. None of it sits in the flood zone. We do not have a wetland delineation survey of any sort, which we wouldn't generally require for this scope of development. But once they get to the point that they are ready to develop that 5-acre piece, that would come then, if there were any wetlands, then
Okay.
we would go through that.
One other question I have, I know I think all of it used to be one, but I know it's broken into 3 parcels now behind it. You got Mr. Godwin and you got Miss
Mhm.
Nobles. Was there an easement? Is there any kind of recorded easement?
There
that goes through
is.
that?
So these parcels here, I want to say it's these 3 that are owned by the same owner, and then this has another owner.
Correct.
There is an easement that goes through
Okay, I
there.
see that.
And this process would not affect that recorded easement. It is a recorded easement of record, and this would not
Won't
would
affect
not
it.
change that.
Okay. Would it
that
be?
easement.
It would kind of go along the lot line or something?
If I'm
Or is
not
it just
mistaken,
through?
it is very close to the lot line. It
Okay.
is very close to the lot line. It is kind of in this area here, which is very close to where the lot line would be.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone in the public have anything on ordinance 2025-09? Any questions, comments? I'm going to handle these one at a time.
Yes, sir.
So we'll go with ordinance 2025-09. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion we approve ordinance number 2025-09, read by title.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, Mr. Commander.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-9, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, making a small-scale amendment to the Baker County Comprehensive Plan by reclassifying approximately 2.5 acres of real property owned by Evergreen home buyers from agricultural B to very low-density residential, providing findings by the Board of County Commissioners, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing and our regular scheduled meeting, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do you have anything to add on 2025-10?
I do not.
Anyone in the public have any comments on rezoning 2025-10? Any commissioners have any questions or comments? What's the pleasure?
I move we approve 2025-10, read by title.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, Mr. Commander.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-10, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 2.5 acres of real property owned by Evergreen home buyers from agricultural 7.5 to residential conventional and mobile home 2.5, providing for a change of zoning, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing and our regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Close our schedule a meeting and back into our public hearing. Anything to add on ordinance 2025-11?
Do not have anything additional, no,
Anyone in
sir.
the public have any questions or comments on ordinance 2025-11? Commissioners, any questions or comments? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve ordinance 2025-11, read by
Second.
title.
I have a motion and a second, Mr. Commando.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-11, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 5 acres of real property owned by Evergreen Home Buyers from agricultural 7.5 to agricultural 5 by providing for a change of zoning, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing and our regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We close a regular meeting, back into our public hearing. Ordinance 2025-15.
All right.
And I'm sure you're gonna put these two together.
Yes,
15
yes,
and
we will
16.
present them together, 15 and
Okay.
16. So this is for ordinance number 2025-15, a small-scale land use amendment with a request of agriculture B to medium-density residential, with the companion ordinance number 2025-16 rezoning with a request of agriculture 7.5 to residential, conventional, and mobile home 0.5. So this parcel is off of Clarence Bennett Road, which is off 125 North, just past the intersection with 125, right before you get to the county park. Clarence Bennett comes off south, off the south side of 125. It currently has a land use of agriculture B and a zoning of Ag 7.5. This parcel was created in 2015. It's currently vacant and, as you can see, non-conforming. Prior to 2015, this parcel was part of a larger tract. However, this portion was separated by the right-of-way of Clarence Bennett Road. So this section here, this is the parcel. It was part of this tract here, and you'll see the road separates there. Due to the limited acreage of this parcel, you know, it at this point would be necessary for it to be eligible for any sort of development to go through a rezoning. When this property was separated in 2015, it was owned by a family member. Since it has been sold, the additional acreage, so it is no longer owned by an immediate family member. So the option to you know, put it back together to make one conforming parcel is not an option at this point. While it was still owned by the previous property owner, it was used for a temporary family lot. So with a temporary family lot, you are given the availability to put a mobile home on your property temporarily for an immediate family member to live in. At the point that that family member is no longer in the dwelling is removed. And so at that point, when it was used that way back in the 90s, a well and septic was put on this portion of the property. So you have a 0.77 acre parcel that already has a well and septic. You can see here, you can see all around it is Ag 7.5 and that Ag Zone B all around it. This did bring up some conversation during our LPA meeting about spot zoning and how we would handle spot zoning situations. And myself and the LPA chairman, Mr. Greg Shepard, we're doing a little bit of background work to kind of see how other counties are handling these types of situations where it could be looked at as spot zoning, but it has, you know, maybe had been used this way previously, and kind of maybe get some clear definition for us how to move forward with these types of situations. So you'll see on the survey here, you can see where where the well and the septic, or where the well and the drain field are, there is a little pond area on the property as well. And the mobile home previously sat right here in between the road and the drain field. So with this type of situation, and the previous use, with temporary family lot, staff recommends approval, where if, the situation was a little different, we might not, if it had never been used in this manner before. But with its previous use, well and septic that are still usable on the property, staff recommends approval. When we went through with LPA, there was a recommended denial, a 3-to-1 vote for denial. And like I said, we had pretty detailed spot zoning conversations and kind of how to move forward with this type of situation. The property owner's here. If you have any questions for him, he may be able to give you a little more history on the property than I can. But it is his intention to put a dwelling there and use the current well and septic. So.
Questions or comments from the board?
Clarification, you said LPA recommended denial?
They did. They recommended denial. It was a 3-to-1 vote.
And their basis of that was simply because of spot zoning?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If it was denied, what's the ending result of that parcel?
It would not be considered buildable in any way from a permitting perspective. So they would not be able to pull any building permits. We had talked if the rest of that original tract was still owned by a family member, we could potentially look at putting that back together to create, a larger tract, but that's not feasible at this point.
And it was created as a family lot originally?
Well, it was used as a temporary family lot.
But somewhere it got separated.
It did. And that was one brother sold this portion to another brother. But that was after it was used as a temporary family lot. That did come after.
So it was initially set up as a temporary family lot.
Yes.
And then while it was being used as a temporary family lot, it was sold off and split.
It was split after the mobile home was removed for the temporary family lot. All through the 90s, it was used for a temporary family lot. The daughter moved off of the property and they moved the mobile home, and then this portion was sold to a brother. So the dwelling was removed prior to it being split.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions, comments from anyone in the public? That's the pleasure of the board.
I'm glad to express my opinion. I understand the concerns from LPA, and they're valid, because this was created by the property owners that sold this off. So their concerns are very valid. So I don't want to dismiss it. But in this particular case, this situation's been there. We had a mobile home. We had somebody living there for many years. It's already there. We're not adding any more density. We're not doing anything else. They can't add anything more on this particular parcel with this zoning. Is there any chance they could add another residence or anything else? So it's going to be one dwelling unit.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to support it because of that one reason, that at the end of the day, this change, all it does is allow one residential unit to be there, just as it always has for many years.
And that was my approach. That was my approach as well. That prior use was the reason for my recommendation of approval.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-15, read by title.
Second. I have a motion second. Mr. Commander.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-15, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, making a small-scale amendment to the Baker County Comprehensive Plan by reclassifying approximately .77 acres of real property owned by James Swindell from agricultural B to medium-density residential, providing findings by the Board of County Commissioners, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing, go on our regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Close our regular meeting, we're back in our public hearing. Ordinance 2025-16. Any comments from anyone in the public? Any comments from anyone on the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-16. Read by title.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Commando?
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-16, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately .77 acres of real property owned by James Swindell from agricultural 7.5 to residential, conventional, and mobile home .5, providing for a change of zoning, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're back in our public hearing. Ordinance 2025-12.
Okay, so the next three that we have, they are companion applications. So that is for ordinance number 2025-12, a small-scale land use amendment from agriculture B to very low-density residential. With ordinance number 2025-13, a rezoning with a request of agriculture 7.5 to residential conventional 1. And then the last companion, ordinance number 2025-14, a rezoning with a request of agriculture 7.5 to agriculture 5. So this parcel is currently owned by the NAB family. It's under the NAB lands. It is located east of Crepe Myrtle to Raintree Drive and down to Hickory Street. The entire parcel is highlighted in blue, but we are discussing this evening only the 87 acres here in the center. That is the only portion that we are discussing a land use and rezoning change. The current land use now is a mix of Ag 10 and Ag 7, or the current zoning now is a mix of Ag 10 and Ag 7.5. The applicant proposes to develop 17 single-family lots consisting of 1 acre, and those will be along the eastern side of Crepe Myrtle, and then 10 single-family lots containing 5 acres or more along Hickory Street and Raintree. Go back to that. So that will be the 1 acre tracts would be along here, and then these are the larger tracts there. So if you look here, the land use and zoning across the street, which is what is now known as McClenny 2, has that very low density residential land use and the RC1 zoning. So the 1 acre tracts that are along Crepe Myrtle would fit the land use and zoning that is across the street, and then the rest would be left in larger tracts to fit a more agricultural, the more agricultural lots along Raintree. This parcel does have some of the FEMA flood zone. You'll see back along behind here, but it is not within any of the portion that we're talking about tonight. So again, we would be looking at 17 single-family lots that are 1 acre along Crepe Myrtle, and then you'll see the larger tracts behind there. We did have last meeting several discussions about drainage and traffic, and there only being 1 entrance and 1 exit. We had the same comments back from our fire chief and from Public Works. We all had the same concerns. Those concerns would be addressed through the actual subdivision process. Our request right now is just for land use and zoning. So all of those other things would be worked out through the actual development process. It was the pleasure of the board for us to reach out and have some conversations about a traffic study. We spoke with Pittman Engineering, and they gave us an evaluation for the need of a traffic study. It was their recommendation that prior to development happening, a full traffic study be conducted. I've passed that along to the property owners. For Pittman Engineering to process, the turnaround time would be about 4 to 6 weeks and would cost about $15,000. So all of that's been shared with the applicant, so that's for him to be able to take, and not saying that he would have to use Pittman, but that is the direction that we would take, that traffic study would still need to be done, but it could be done by another company if that was their wish. So staff does recommend approval for the land use and zoning change. However, we just wanted to make it very clear to the applicant that the traffic study concerns, access concerns, and some permit clarity from the St. John's Water Management District. We would need some clarity of some of those old permits that, based on the Water Management District's permitting portal, it is hard to tell sometimes if a permit has been satisfied or not. So we would want some clarity from them. And then in addition to that, any of the WUI requirements that would come into play through our fire chief. So we've discussed at great length with the applicant that, they understand that all of those requirements would have to be satisfied prior to us looking at a development application. So with that, LPA and myself, we did recommend approval just with those concerns being noted. And I do have the traffic evaluation from Pittman if any of you guys would like to look at that.
Was that the map that you have?
That
Or
was
the whole
the
thing?
map that I was sharing with you earlier. That was the last page of their evaluation. So they did have with their evaluation, just of course it's not a thorough, not a full traffic study, but they were looking at some potential options of maybe coming through the backside of the property, maybe out to 228 instead of out to 121. Of course, the feasibility of that would come out during that full traffic study. See if that's.
Do you have the slide with that?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. I did not get that back in time.
We looked at it right beforehand, LaDonna and I, and it looks like it was coming, what Pittman had proposed was coming off a rain tree. And I'm looking at the property appraiser right now, and Mr. Jordan, you may be able to answer a little bit better. It looks like there's an easement or something that goes through the woods through there, through La Buena. However, I mean, it looks like just like a train
I believe
road.
that easement that you're seeing is the old railroad track that's been
Is it?
abandoned. That is not, it's labeled 228, but it is definitely not 228.
Right.
So, and in order to get there, you got to cross Turkey Creek.
That's right.
Some substantial cost to do a box culvert or a bridge to get across that creek.
Sure.
So that would definitely be like the last option that we would even want to talk about. But anyway, that's the old railroad track that run through there.
I just wanted to point that out.
Or
just,
it's not the
meeting,
railroad track; it's an old logging road. It's nothing substantial.
Well, what they were showing was 228 was not 228. It's just like what we're talking about here. Like I said, it don't pull up on the property appraiser as a title. But anyways, that's what the engineering report showed, I believe.
And make sure, just for this is an evaluation.
Yes, it's just an
It
evaluation.
doesn't mean
Right.
this is what they agreed to, or this is what they think, or this is.
Absolutely.
That's not gonna come until you get your full report. This is just some options, so.
Right.
The full report will detail more about which way you need to go.
Justin, I just wanted to throw that out there. Just looking at it initially, I mean, it didn't make sense to me. I knew that
I've
228
had an
wasn't right
evaluation
there.
before, and when I got the real thing, you throw the evaluation in the garbage.
Sometimes they can look quite a bit different.
Yeah, look a lot different.
Recycle stack.
I just want the public to be aware that that evaluation doesn't mean, they didn't spend a lot of time
Right.
on the evaluation.
If you don't mind, while I'm up here, and I'll go sit back down, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Mr. Bennett, I'm glad you're here. Trying to dispose of this land in a responsible way. The family's been approached by different developers over the years with some different ideas, some half-acre lots.
Mr. George, are you finished?
I am. That was everything.
I just want to make sure she's finished. I don't want
That's
to.
public comments. No, it's public comments.
Now it's public comments. I just wanted to make sure the staff was finished.
I called him up here. I'm sorry.
It's fine if he
Yeah.
comes, but I
Yeah.
just want to make sure our staff is finished, and then before I go into the next.
But I'll just say this, the family's been scratching their head for a while, trying to figure out how to liquidate the property, not being that part of the land development business anymore. And I've looked at it, and I think that approach that we're doing is a very responsible way with the large lots in conjunction with the smaller 1 acre lots. And lastly, as we're moving forward in time, land values, land costs, development costs continually seem to be going through the roof. And I don't have a crystal ball, but there's a very strong likelihood this might be one of the last 1 acre lot communities that we're going to see for a while. I mean, because of the cost tends to shrink the lots down so that people can afford them. So I just hope y'all consider that. And if you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them. If not, I'll go sit down.
Before you leave, LaDonna, can you back the slides up to show the overall site with the number of lots, please?
You want that one or the one that shows the
Go
lots?
forward. Go right there. That one.
Mhm.
Clearly, George, all the 1 acre lots would come off of Craig Myrtle, right? Where's the access for the other lots? Because I see it appears to be one interior that does not face any other road.
So the interior lot would take an easement between the 10 acre lot north of it and the 14 acre lot beside it, to the right of it.
So that unless I'm mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, Raintree Drive is a private road, am I correct?
Yes.
So how is that to be handled with all these additional folks around it? How are they have access to that private road?
So the 5 acre lots on the bottom are gonna come in off of Hickory, which is the dirt road. It's not even been attempted to be improved. We're gonna do that the same exact way we did Southern Estates, a homeowners association and a recycled asphalt road. Now, as far as Raintree Drive, so the 2 5 acre lots that go up Raintree Drive, all that'll be part of the HOA as well, and that'll be maintained. Whereas Raintree Drive, it started off kind of as a family lot deal. Lots have been bought and sold. There's not really a great maintenance plan for Raintree Drive. However, that'll encompass at least half of Raintree Drive there that'll now be incorporated into the HOA that will maintain at least that portion of it. The 14 acres and the 10 acres are going to be retained by immediate family members.
Okay, I think you may have a challenge there. I'm okay with it. Here's where I asked my question. I've been hit up by 2 people expressing concerns, one over drainage, not so much about traffic, but drainage, because McClenny 2 is notorious for challenges with drainage along the roadways, but also the challenges with private roads. And I'm a proponent. I'll be up front. I'm all for improvements in having private roads that are improved but not necessarily paved, irregardless of what the newspaper, Ms. Pravat, wants to print and say we shouldn't approve anymore. sorry, I am a firm believer in this approach because the ones that's using that road are the ones that's paying it, and the public is not having to pay for it. So I am perfectly okay with making improvements such as this, but we've had the caveats that we've placed on these type of things before, where when you do this, your deeds and things have to be noted that this is a private road. It is not maintained by the county. It's not responsibility of the county, and should it not be maintained, the county is not responsible for trying to provide emergency services if it's not a passable roadway, and it does not relieve the property owners of their responsibility for paying the appropriate ad valorem and special assessment taxes and things. So that's my biggest concern, is who is maintaining this. If you're taking those two lots along with the ones along Hickory Street and putting them in an HOA, you got a lot of other people using that roadway that's not paying. So you may have some challenges there. But from my standpoint, that's my biggest concern, is making sure that the roads that you put in there or anything that you do is covered and somebody's got to maintain them, especially any new ones, because we want to be sure that the county is not responsible for doing any maintenance on anything that's there. So I just want to be, and I want to make sure that we got appropriate drainage, that we do not try to use the ditches along Crepe Myrtle as retention. The ditches are not retention, and I see too many times the swales are tried to use as part of your retention system, and that's where I have a concern with that. Okay. But
Fair
otherwise,
enough.
I'm in favor of the improvements, but I think there needs to be special attention paid for drainage when it comes through to make sure that the drainage is addressed, and make sure that as this comes through, that there's a plan to make sure those roads are maintained.
Were the ones up to the two that's on Raintree, were they going to be encompassed into the HOA, or they're separate? The ones on the outside.
The 5 acre lots? Or the 10 acre?
The 5 acre that comes up, the existing homes on the other side of the road, they're not in the HOA, correct?
The existing homes will not be in the HOA.
Okay.
And I'm going to advocate for them to form some sort of, partnership, but I don't know.
Right.
It's their road.
Yeah.
They use it. It's up to them to maintain it.
That's
again,
right.
We've had this challenge before where roads were approved that did not have any mechanism for maintenance, and that's the challenge we come in. And this is not the first one where we've had developers that come in that was supposed to do an HOA. It never come to fruition, and now the lots have been sold multiple times, no HOA in place to handle it, and you got private property owners on a private road that says, well, county, you need to come do something. Well, there's nothing we can do, and that's where I want to be clear that whatever we do, any roads that's built, somebody's got to be responsible for maintaining.
If I may? Yeah.
Yes.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Speaking, will you do your name and your address for the board?
Ron Brooks, 3669 Raintree Drive. If we can bring that back up. My lot is if you're looking on the bottom right, is the second one from the bottom. It's where, actually in this map, it might be on the bottom. This is like Hickory is the dirt road.
Kind of at the end of Hickory?
Yeah, I'm at the dead end of Hickory.
So that'd be
Trey McCullough's old house. That's the only, so everybody knows how to find it. Yeah, that's it. Actually, it's, I believe it's one this way. I think you're missing a Todd McCullough's old house, which should be at the very bottom there.
Okay.
I don't think that's on the map.
And what was your name, sir?
Ron Brooks, R-O-N.
Okay.
B-R-O-O-K-S. As far as just to make my point clear, I fully advocate for somebody to be able to do what they want with their property. This circumstance is, in my opinion, the most favorable to maintain both the neighborhood and to maintain kind of the rural lifestyle we have back there currently. That's what we all bought back there for. I bought 2015, so it was mostly family members when I moved in. But as far as the reason I got up here is to address the road as far as the maintenance aspect. I'm pretty sure, just based on my experience, because I have personally spread about 236 tons, and that's not an exaggeration, of lime on that road in order to have an ingress and egress, because as you probably know, that there are points at which during the rainy season, if my house caught on fire, it just burned to the ground. Nothing could get back. You're not going to be able to drive anything back there. I can barely get my four-wheel drive truck down there, let alone a fire engine or rescue or something of that nature. But everybody on the road, with the exception of one resident, I've spoken to me. I front the bill. They pay me back. All but one, right there in the bend at the top, that first knuckle at the top. It goes to a improved asphalt road that I think the Simpkins kind of helped orchestrate when they had a dump truck company. But everything back this way, I got everybody but one to kick in. So I think everybody is probably, if you advocated for it, I think we could get people to, I wouldn't label it an HOA, I'd call it a road improvement or a road maintenance fund or something. You're not telling them what color to paint my house. No, we're not going through that. But the
HOA bylaws could be written so it's only that.
So specifically for the road itself. So if you had all those lots, the fives on this side, I guess this is Hickory at the bottom, correct? So you're not seeing the other side of Hickory, right?
Yeah, it extends a little bit further from
Right.
Hickory.
So-
Braintree extends about 2 lots further south.
So if you, I don't think you'll have a problem if you implement the HOA or whatever you're going to call it for the new properties. I don't think there'll be a problem getting everybody else to get on board. Obviously, they want a serviceable road. They want to be able to drive up and down the road. Know that they can get a fire engine down there. I've read the comments. Unfortunately, my work didn't permit me to come to the last couple of meetings, but I know the fire chief was concerned about turning his apparatus around the end of the road. That's important to me too. But my only issue is, as you already mentioned, drainage. There's a drainage issue going back there. It goes to the creek. Everything slants down. Believe me, I plan on seeing it later this week. But I think if we can address the drainage satisfactorily, I don't think you'll have a problem getting everybody on board with road maintenance. That's speaking on the lower half of the road. I can't speak for the upper half of the road, but I do know 90% of those people, so I'm pretty sure you won't have a problem with them either. If that needs to be a selling point ahead of time. But I'd much rather see that than see you cut a road through 228 and then, have zero control of what's coming in from where, flying from one end of the neighborhood to the other is not, and having to be a half acre lot subdivision or quarter acre lots or whatever, God forbid, they decide to do with it. I mean, that's a more profitable thing to do, I think, for a developer, if anybody's doing that now. But I think this is probably the best utilization of the land to maintain or preparing for the future and preserving the past logo there. But the drainage definitely have to be addressed. And I don't know if that's putting sacrificing a lot for a retention pond, or I don't know what that is. I can't speak intelligently about that. But as far as the road goes, I get out there with my little tractor and then actually Mr. Knapp sees me on my little tractor. He gets his big tractor out and comes down there and greets me in the middle. So I don't think, like I said, you'll have any. I think you probably have substantial agreement on paying a road fund. I went around with a week's notice and people gave me $500 checks to put lime rock down that, not an ideal substance, but it's what we could get for the money that we were putting in there. So that's really all I had to say about it. So I'm all about it. I think that's the best way to use that land, personally. So.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
I would also point out one additional thing with that. If Hickory is improved, you have better connectivity now because you have a circulation. You have an entire loop all the way around because Hickory is there now, but it's just a dirt road. Is that correct, George?
Yes,
So at least if it's improved now, you've got the folks on Raintree on that back side have an extra way out that's much more passable as well. So it does provide improved overall connectivity around for all the residents that's along on Hickory Street. So
Yeah.
and again, I'll say it again, the road here, even with Hickory, You understand the drain. Better make sure you size culverts, make sure you get everything under there so it doesn't flood. That's the issue.
Well,
It'll be an
believe me,
improved roadway.
I'm at the bottom of that slant. I don't definitely want, I'm anti-flooding, I assure you.
Okay.
But that's, this road, unfortunately, when this road gets in a bad condition, this is Hickory, this road, those are probably my tire tracks. My house is down at the end on the right. But if this gets torn up, which it does in the summer storms, you know, we could not afford to do all this. So literally, like the last, just to show you, you know, who was involved, the last 4 houses on the road, all of them pitched in $500 a piece. Me and my 3 neighbors, none of that material went in front of our house. All that material went 5 houses down and beyond because we just needed ingress and egress, and that's where the line went. We didn't even bother. We couldn't do anything with this road. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But
Mr. Brooks, I appreciate you speaking.
Yeah.
All of the issues were typically what we spoke about last time as far as the drainage, because I mean, as we spoke, it kind of flows from, you know, all the way to Turkey Creek, and that was one of the items we talked about, and I said you were going to look into. So he is looking into that. I mean, like I said, that's something we talked about last time, and the improved roads and getting with the rest of them to kind of create the HOA if it's possible, you know.
And I'm glad this picture came up because, Mr. Bennett, you weren't here last time, but that picture on the right is one of the roads that was built the exact same way in Southern Estates with the 100-foot radius cul-de-sac, and that road turned out really nice. It's holding up really well, at least for now. You know, it's still a new road, but it's holding up good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I have a speaker card for Miss Nancy McKnight. Hey, how are you? Could you say your name and all for the
Okay, my name is Nancy McKnight, and I own the property on the other end of Raintree. I own a 2-acre property that is on the corner of Raintree and Crepe Myrtle. Most of my property runs along Crepe Myrtle. I have experienced terrible flooding, and I would like to give y'all these if y'all would like to look at them.
Sure. Thank you. You can go ahead.
One other thing my only other complaint, I understand they want to do something with their property, and I don't know the answer. But I've had a lot of issues, and I have contacted the sheriff's department. I've had a lot of issues with people in the back on the road that is privately owned. They have come up beside my property and stolen the stop sign. They have stolen the road signs, and I have pictures. And I posted on Facebook that I wanted the people to return them back, and they did. The next day they were laying on the ground. But I have, we have several people back in those roads, in that road that is privately owned. They bring truckloads and truckloads and trailer loads of trees and limbs, and they dump it right where all of these houses are going to be built. So you got all these people back here doing all this crazy stuff, and now we're going to put more people over there, and that's a lot of houses right there for what we have now. I don't even know what kind of houses they're talking about. I'm worried about our home values, and I'm really worried about the drainage and the traffic. That's one other thing I'd like, and then I'll sit down. Right where the dirt road that is not county maintained comes right in front of my property. They come onto the paved road, and they act like it's the Grand Prix every morning, and I've called and called, and I just think the traffic is going to get a lot worse, and something needs to be done. Maybe a stop sign right there would be ideal if they would have to stop before they come onto the paved road. But they have the right of way to just come, and it's hard to look down there because of the woods. And they come flying out that road every single morning. And I think that needs to be addressed too. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I have 2 more speakers cards, and Ann Reisman.
Hello again.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Ann Reisman, 4198 Raintree Drive. I am Nancy's neighbor. I live on the paved portion of Raintree right before it turns into a dirt road. We built our house in 2003, and at that time, I believe there were 4 houses down the dirt road. I think there's now 18, and since then, when we originally moved in, we did not have the flooding on our property we do now. So you can't say the flooding is all going to go to Turkey Creek, because it has come the other way. Nancy, my neighbor's property, never used to experience flooding, and now I really feel bad for her because the water is high. I brought more pictures. I know I shared some, but this is the Hickory entrance when it floods. I know he's talking about paving it, but that's when it's flooded, what it looks like. There's some serious improvements that need to be done there. But I also want to show you the neighbor behind me's property when there's flooding. I don't know if you can see, that's 3 neighborhood houses behind me with flooding all in their backyard, just standing water. Nothing but a mosquito pit. And I don't know how you expect more houses to be built in the neighborhood and not be flooding concerns. I also got a copy of the 2020 minutes from the Land Planning Agency meeting from the last time this was up for a vote. When this was up for a vote, it was 31 acres. Now it's 84. And there were numerous things that were brought up that had never been resolved by the property owner and St. John's Water Management District. It was tabled because, and I'm going to quote, there were numerous things that required this to be tabled, including, there needed to be future remedies for the drainage, stormwater pond, roadways, access to the overall subdivision, and all the outstanding previous improvements that were potentially required and never resolved or implemented. I don't know that those were ever resolved in the last 4 or 5 years or implemented. So I don't know how this is moving forward when there were so many things that were unresolved 5 years ago. I mean, I'm all for growth. I'm all for, infrastructure. But right now, everybody that goes down Raintree, the dirt road, they don't go down Hickory, they don't go down Birch, they don't go down Dogwood. They all go down Raintree because it is a nice paved road. All of the other roads are horrible. They're just full of potholes, have never been improved in the 20 years that I have lived in the neighborhood. So they're going to continue to go down Raintree. And from 4 houses originally, I'm now going to see an additional 35 to 70 cars going down there. I mean, that's a lot of wear and tear on my road. Are you planning to improve the paved roads on the other streets so that traffic flows down those? That's all I have to say. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn Yarber.
Glenn Yarber, 6514 Home Again Lane, McLean, Florida. I represent the family which owns Laguna and Nab Lands. And I just wanted the public to know, in the past, I've met with numerous developers wanted even to build a road to go across Turkey Creek, to develop this into quarter-acre lots and stuff like that. The family didn't want it. They lived back there. A lot of them lived there. We got numerous people that I know that live in McClenny too. But we can no longer function as a family, as a timber company. It just don't work anymore. And some of the members are getting older and they want to sell their property. So we thought that this would be the best way that's all one parcel, not just what we're talking about on the 87 acres. It's 368 acre, one parcel. So the family said, well, we'll split it and sell one parcel and then sell the other. First of all, you got to sell one before you can sell the other. And if, you know what I'm saying, we got to get this going. But the reason, and Hickory, that ain't even a road. I mean, it is sometimes it's not. And what George is proposing to do is definitely going to improve that road. And with the number of lots on this amount of land is, it could have been a whole lot more. We could have been asking for a whole lot more money. But we're trying to meet people halfway and to get it done if we can.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public have no more speaker cards? Commissioner comments?
You know, one comment I got real quick is, I think we talked about it in the last meeting. I don't think that we confirmed there was no culverts going under Crepe Myrtle, correct? Okay. So all of this water will be, that water there on that side of Crepe Myrtle will be directed towards Turkey Creek. Okay.
Well, Christian, that's exactly where my concern is, because I don't want to see more water coming towards Crepe Myrtle. We've already got challenges there, so they got to take a look at potentially I don't care if it's just a swell ditch along the backside that comes down south, depending on the way it grades, but just got to make sure that we're not grading more water towards Crepe Myrtle. It's got to be intercepted so it goes the other direction, and gets to Crepe Myrtle. And that's where my concern is with this, that's got to be part of the thing. So while we approve this tonight, doesn't mean we approve. And by the way, this is a proposed site plan, and once it goes through all the processes, it will get adjusted as it needs to. And whether that's a separate dedicated easement for drainage purposes, or whether it's part of the property owners, but there needs to be a drainage easement. There needs to be some additional drainage ditches there to ensure that the drainage is not going towards Crepe Myrtle. That is being directed so that it does not create additional challenges there. And I'm going to also really encourage to make sure when we review the plans for improvements to Hickory, that it takes a look at the crossings there and the culverts that's needed across there to make sure that the drainage can flow under it. Because just replacing, just because there's not a culvert there now doesn't mean we don't need one there.
Right.
And because it's not improved now. So whenever that's done, whenever Hickory is designed and laid out, we got to make sure there's appropriate cross drains across there. Mm-hmm. And the simple rule is, if you're not sure, add a culvert.
Right.
It's really inexpensive to do it when you're building. It's a lot more challenging to do it afterwards.
Absolutely.
So that's where my challenge is with this, is just to make sure that the drainage is addressed and that the road is done such that it does not create another challenge down the road.
And I would like to say too, those concerns that were there 5 years ago, you'll see those same concerns are in my staff report. That's why we're asking for clarity for some of those same concerns from the Water Management District. We haven't dismissed those concerns; they're still there, but there's still time for them to provide us clarity for those permits prior to the actual development stage. We didn't feel that it was required of the property owner to have that covered prior to the zoning entitlement of the property. So that's why we didn't require that clarity prior to this step. So.
Well, I'm going to support the motion. I don't mind putting the motion on the floor for these to move it forward with that concern, because when I look at this overall site plan, everything that's run along Crepe Myrtle is consistent with exactly what's on the opposite side of it, and then even over on the back parcels, it's pretty much consistent with what's on the other side of Raintree. So it's consistent on both sides with the surrounding area, and yeah, there's a concern about the primary access out is one single road. There's two other little connections out, but they still come way back up next to 121. But that's where my biggest concern is, our biggest thing is making sure it's consistent with the neighborhood, and this is, but the drainage needs to be addressed. So with that, I'm glad to put a motion. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, before you say that real quick, one of the things I think we talked about last time was on the other side of Raintree, if that water did go there, to potentially looking for an easement to Turkey Creek that went along through it. Just keep that in mind for going forward. I know we kind of talked about that. I used that other property as an example.
Right.
So, just want to make sure, everybody's covered on that end.
Everything that I had questions about have been answered by the family and by the other commissioners. My concerns was drainage. I think that's going to be handled through your permitting with your St. John's Water Management and stuff. I think anything that we can do and that the landowner can do to help some of the drainage issues, if we need to add a culvert to get some of that water to an easement, we might need to look at that if there's any way we can help some of the issues that we're already having, because that water's got to go that way. It's not going to go down there and turn around and come back.
Right.
So anything that we can do that he can see in his plan that he could help alleviate some of the issues we're already having, and I think he would do that. I've seen that some of the stuff he's done in his other development. The other issue I had, and it's been addressed here tonight, is the traffic study. I did think when I mentioned it that we would have to have a full-blown traffic study. I said that in the last meeting, and it's going to require that. And I'm glad to see that is what the recommendation. I'm talking right now, but I'll let you talk in a minute. Okay? But now I lost my train of thought.
Traffic
But anyway, it don't take much for me to lose my train. But the traffic study was important to me just for the simple fact that it will show the traffic movement, and we're talking 17 lot or total. What's the total?
27 lots.
But you can figure 2 to 3 cars per lot
Mhm.
for every home. So, and that was a concern of mine, because I used to live in McLeany too, so I know what you get out there to 121 and you like to get run over trying to get out.
Right.
But we have a lot of places in Baker County, like 125 getting out of Hills of Glen, same issue. I mean, there's a lot of issues, but we will need to address those up front. And I think a traffic study would help us do that.
It's going to give us some good direction.
Good direction.
Absolutely.
And then also the improvements of the existing roads is going to help not only the people who's living there but the people who's going to be living in. And I agree with Commissioner Bennett. Make sure it's in writing, and everyone who buys a piece of property knows without a doubt that they're responsible for those roads. Because I do agree that every road that you put in, unless the county puts it in, and we got to maintain it, it needs to be paved. But if a HOA is going to take over it, we shouldn't penalize an HOA with the land sizes that we're looking at. All the small lots are on paved roads. Your bigger lots are on the farm type lots, which the gentleman had mentioned. That's where he lives, and he was glad to see the development was kind of staying with where he spent all his money, probably his last house.
We call those forever homes.
He said forever home.
Not last house.
Now you can't sell it. You put yourself out there. So.
My wife's next husband's going to
Yeah. Can we strike that from the record? It's going to be in big
No, we
trouble.
don't take the minutes anymore.
But anyway, I think everything that I had concerns over have been met. Is there any other? And this has got to come back before the board again.
No, this is the
No,
final
this is
hearing
final.
now.
No, I'm not this,
The
not the
development
zone. The
portion,
development
yes,
portion comes
yes.
back before.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll get to look at all the improvements and what's been made.
And prior to it coming
Right.
back, we would have everything back from the Water Management District.
Right.
We would have that traffic study. We would have a more detailed lot layout.
So we get to look at it again. That's what I was saying, not this, but
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
would like to say that I am happy that they're doing the 1 acre instead of a quarter acre, or
Yep.
which could be what we have seen lately come
That
before
is.
us as very small lots that when approved.
Mhm.
I think the 1 acre tracts fit better in Baker County, and especially out. So I am glad that they're doing that. So some of the larger tracts, of course, are even better. But I do think that does help the neighbors to not have as many homes, because if they look around, they can see where it's smaller and there's
Right.
a lot more houses. So I am pleased with that.
It's truly a transitional area
It
because
is.
you already have the smaller lots on one side and the larger on the other. So this very much fits that.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, ma'am. You have to come up to the microphone, please, Miss.
Oh, sorry.
It's recorded, is the reason we have to do that.
Yeah, so when they do the traffic study, I don't know if it's possible, can we wait till after the new Journey store? Because that's gonna bring in more traffic right to that area. Traffic going in and out, trying to get across the road. I don't know the timing, but it's gonna be a challenge.
Whatever's existing at the time that the application's received.
Thank you.
But they will, I mean, they should take that into
They take it
consideration,
into
knowing it's
They'll
there.
take it into consideration since it's under construction.
Since it's
under
under construction, they will.
They have to consider it.
But we don't have true counts.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-12, read by title.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, Mr. Commander.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-12, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, making a small-scale amendment to the Baker County Comprehensive Plan by reclassifying approximately 17.02 acres of real property owned by NAB Lands, Inc. from agricultural B to very low-density residential in order to bring it into compliance with the future land use map, providing findings by the Board of County Commissioners, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
We'll close our public hearing and regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll close our regular meeting, back in our public meeting. You had anything to add on rezoning?
I do not. No, sir.
Move to approve ordinance 2025-13, read by title.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone in the public have any other comments? Mr. Commander.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-13, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 17.02 acres of real property owned by NAB Lands, Inc. from agricultural 7.5 to residential conventional 1, with the intent of bringing the parcel into compliance for future development, providing findings by the Board of County Commissioners, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Close our public hearing and a regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're back in our public hearing. Ordinance 2025-14. You have anything to add?
No, sir, I do not.
Anyone in the public have any other comments?
Move to approve ordinance number 2025-14, read by title.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Commander.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-14, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 70.82 acres of real property owned by NAB Lands, Inc. from agricultural 7.5 and agricultural 10 to agricultural 5, with the intent of bringing the parcel into compliance for future development, providing findings by the Board of County Commissioners, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
We'll close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else for the board?
That's it for me.
That'll close our public hearing. Do we need a minute or are we ready to
Just for
go?
everybody to leave, maybe.
We'll take 5. Go back into our regular scheduled meeting, and we're on item number 7, approval of a proposal. Ms. Sarah, you're handling this one?
Yes, sir, I am. I apologize. My name was left off of that item, but I will handle this one. So presented to you all tonight is a proposal from Mr. Troy Tarbox, who has been one of our continuing services engineering consultants for about 20 years actually with us. This project is in relation to Project Icebox. If you guys are familiar, Mr. Darrell Register came before the board actually quite some time back about a potential development that would be located along Enterprise East back behind Walmart DC. Baker County was awarded an RIF grant, a Rural Infrastructure Fund grant, to do the infrastructure improvements that were needed to help facilitate this project. So what you have before you is a proposal from Mr. Tarbox to do the complete engineering, design, and permitting for the roadway, storm, water, and sewer infrastructure improvements that are needed. This proposal totals $157,005. It is 100% reimbursable from this RIF grant. The RIF grant totals $3,005,671, which includes obviously the design, engineering, and permitting, and construction. So this would just be the first step in getting this project to completion, which is basically just extending Enterprise East back further behind Walmart DC, and then of course installing water and sewer and constructing the road as necessary. Staff has reviewed this. We have no questions or concerns. We actually had a Teams meeting last week with Public Works staff, county administration. Mr. Darrell Register was unable to attend because he had a prior engagement, but we did have a conversation with him separately, and our state contract grant manager all agreed that the project was in line with the parameters as it was established and approved and recommended approval of the proposal submitted by Mr. Tarbox. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have it, but again, staff recommends approval in the amount of $157,005 to Tarbox Consulting and Design.
Any questions or comments?
One quick question. We're using this through one of our GEC contracts, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just for the record, this falls within the threshold limits that's allowed for the GEC under the Consultants Competitive Negotiations Act, so I'm good with
Yes,
it.
sir.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the proposal as submitted.
I'll second it.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're moving to item number 8, which is added. We had an audit presentation at 4 o'clock today, and now we need to accept those audits, accept the audit.
Make a motion that we accept the audits as presented from James Moore Company.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we're moving to our next item on the agenda, which is prior business and with a pending business report. Ms. Sarah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to hit some highlights on this. If I move too quickly or you have any further questions, please feel free to stop me. COA Bus Wash, we did have a site meeting out there with the contractor and their staff, City of McClenny, county staff, and COA. We all come to the agreement that we still don't have a solution to this problem, unfortunately. However, we do believe that there may be some issues with the engineered plans that were used for the construction. So this was a design build, so thankfully that if anything does need to be changed out, that is on the contractor to do so. We did further testing and we agreed that water pressure entering into the building seems to be adequate. There's not any issues. The backflow preventer work, while we did not think that it offered much solution to our problem, it actually did. Now that we've been out there and done further testing, it did not get us where we needed to go. But where we're at now at this point is that piping inside the building seems to go from a much larger diameter outside of the building, and it's tapered down potentially too small inside the building. So the contractor's engineer was going to do some testing and recalibration. There's a pretty simple solution, honestly, but it would require some simple repiping of the building, again, at the contractor's cost. So we are waiting that engineer to review that. Again, we believe that is where we're at with this. The problem with this property as a whole is we've had several different water issues that were seemingly unrelated that are causing multiple problems on the property, and we are slowly eliminating them one by one. And now this is the last step in that. So hopefully we will have that information to present to you all. The equipment is, it can be used. There just has to take some time in between using the equipment. So just for the sake of not damaging anything, they are not using it right now. However, we did turn it on. We tested it. It's just that the to keep the equipment without failure, it needs more pressure per minute, more gallons per minute to be pumped through there. So we'll continue to work on it. Again, this is one that's high priority for us. We had a lot of people on site to look at that day, and we'll continue to report back to the board as we get more information on that one. Moving on down the list, the St. Mary's Cove boat ramp project on the consent agenda tonight. We actually did do some contract extensions. FWC has been in a lot of conversation, a lot of communication with county staff over the last 6 or 7 weeks about both of these projects. We have seen some significant moving forward on the phase 2, which is the design and permitting of a bathroom facility there. North Florida Professional Services is handling that for us. In fact, we had some conversations today with FWC about the status of that. We actually will have some plans hopefully to present to you all for review in the very near future. But again, those are moving forward. FWC is really excited about the potential change out of location of the boat ramp for phase 1. They really like that. We've shared this with you all prior that they agree that the location of the existing boat ramp is not in an ideal location, and we'll continue to see flooding and washout concerns in the future if it's not moved, just because that cove that it's located on is in a poor location. So we continue to keep FWC involved with all of those steps. And as part of the FEMA RFP process that we've talked about, I will add that to this pending business report, but obviously the boat ramp falls into that category, and those bids are due May the 29th. So we'll have some more information to report back to you on all of those. And again, we'll add those to this pending business report.
We have shared that with FWC.
Yes, sir, we have.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We are making sure we're including them on all of those conversations.
Okay, thank you.
The Council on Aging does have their grand opening ceremony May 9th. That's this week at 10 a.m. Just to remind you all to please be there if your schedule permits. I know they're really excited about showing off that facility to the public. It's been in use for several weeks now. But again, if you guys could be there or in the public, I know they're encouraging people to be there on May 9th at 10 a.m. Moving on down into a couple of items. The courthouse generator, just to remind you all that we are still waiting on equipment. There was a long lead time on that, but that again remains a priority for us to move forward, especially as hurricane season is upon us. We want to make sure that gets taken care of. Again, as an appropriation project, we are making sure to update the state as we move through that process as well. And then the last thing that we have on our list is the Sanderson Center. So we were able to get the well replaced out there. We've had a little bit of an issue reopening it to the public. We've got to get a water quality test passed before we can reopen it to the public. We've had some difficulty doing that. We believe that it's just to the pump not being used, through this process. So we are in a retesting phase, and as soon as we get the clear go-ahead that we've passed that water quality testing, then we'll be able to reopen that facility. But that's been the holdup. We've actually had a different type of test that we're moving forward. Some of those we know in the Sanderson area, sometimes we do have to chlorinate those systems before we can pass that test. And we're hopeful that we don't have to do that. But that may be our next step, is to do a chlorination and then retesting.
How long have you run that well?
I'm sorry?
How long have you run the well?
It's been quite a while. I mean, staff has been out there to run it, and like I said, this is their.
It's going to have to run.
Yes, sir.
Quite a bit.
Yes, sir. This is will be our third attempt on our water quality test. But unfortunately, like I said, we've seen this happen before, but we're working on it. So just wanted to give you all an update on that it has been stalled until that water quality test could be reached. If there are any other questions specific to the pending business report, I will be happy to answer it, but that's really the update since our last county commission meeting.
Do we have any idea on where we're at with the plans for anything for the Sanderson Center?
No, sir, I have not heard back from Mr. Moore yet. I know his structural engineer was able to go out and take a look at the facility, but we've not gotten a report back.
Connor Station, fire station, have we looked at trying to plan and some type of ceremony of open that station?
Not to my
being
knowledge, but
opened?
I'll check with Chief Blanton tomorrow on that.
Are we 100% finished with that?
Excuse me. I don't believe so. Don't let me misspeak on that. There were some minor work that needed to be done, that concrete pad out back. I'm not certain that has been taken care of, but I'll confirm that as well.
We'll do the opening until we get 100%, but I would like to have some kind of community
Yes, sir.
gathering or something.
Grand reopening. We can certainly get that scheduled. Okay, any other questions for me? Thank you.
Any questions? All right, the expense report over 5,000. Anyone have anything for Sarah? American Rescue Plan updates, Ms. Sarah?
No, sir, there are no updates from last meeting. No expenditures to report.
20, 22, 23 audit update.
Yes, sir. This is just a standing item that we've had on the agenda for the last several weeks. I'm not sure if there any commissioners may want to provide any comments, but I don't have anything to report on this item.
Commissioner Mobley, you have anything?
Not on 22, 23, I don't think. I think we discussed that in the workshop in the majority. We can put the 22 or 23, 24 one on there.
Yeah, I have it updated after tonight to change the standing item to 23, 24.
At least till we get through that.
Yes, sir.
Put that one back on.
Okay. We have county manager,
No, sir.
county attorney.
So right before this meeting, an email was sent to me that it was actually, I guess I was copied. It was sent to you, Mr. Chair. That came from Joel Foreman, who is, I think everybody knows, is the attorney for the clerk's office. And he essentially wants to have a kind of settlement type conversation with us. And then he attached a copy of a lawsuit threatening to sue us if we didn't turn over the actual financial software. So I'm not looking for any direction right at this point, but I'll let y'all know I intend to speak to you individually and talk about kind of what the next step should look like. I can answer questions to the extent you have them. That's all I have.
So he wants a meeting with all the commissioners or just the chairman or what?
Yeah, I mean, it can happen in a public meeting where everybody's present. It can happen where you designate somebody as a kind of point of contact to essentially negotiate on behalf of the board or to participate in the meeting.
And if we don't, they're going to sue, the clerk of the court's going to sue the county?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. I think it's best we talk offline.
Yes, sir. That's all I have, sir.
At some point, Rich, can we have a shade meeting?
Actually, because of this, we can. I agree.
Okay, so I'm going to request a shade meeting to be scheduled before we put anything final back. Shade meeting is the board can meet together. It is not open to public. It is a closed meeting. It is recorded, but it's not made. The discussions that's made because of pending litigation is made and maintained records of it, and it's not released until after final rendering of any litigation. But this board needs to be able to talk freely amongst ourselves without as we strategize and how we move forward, and you do that in the shade meeting. So I'm going to request a shade meeting be scheduled whenever an appropriate time is for that.
Yes, and I'm sorry. So let me talk to each of y'all individually just about the mechanics of how a shade meeting, or sometimes here called executive session, would work. And then I have no problem scheduling those.
again, that's a great point, Rich. I think having get some individual direction from each member, their thoughts on it, whatever, and then from that point, you can coordinate with the county manager and the chairman to see if that's the best approach to be able to talk.
Well, and we can talk about the mechanics of it. I mean, the thing that I think about and I try to advise clients about is understand that there's really two different types of meetings that you can conduct outside of Sunshine, and literally there's only two. So when we have a collective bargaining agreement, if there's negotiation back and forth, obviously you don't want the other side to know what our strategy is, what our tolerances are. So when you have that type of executive session, it's done, you open the public meeting, you go into a shade meeting. Everything that's said in there, you speak freely, but whatever's said still is kept confidential, honestly, in perpetuity forever. And the reason for that is because generally after 3 years, you could end up negotiating again. You don't want to let the other side know kind of what your strategies and tolerances are. There's a little bit of a distinction when you have pending, threatened, or if you're involved in litigation. When you're involved in litigation, you have the same process where you open a public meeting, go into a shade meeting, everybody else is kicked out except for whoever is supposed to be in the shade meeting. You have a court reporter there, and they document everything that's said. So even though you're able to speak freely, it's just as a caution to everybody, at the conclusion of the litigation, that transcript becomes public. Mm-hmm. So even though you speak freely, to me it's a temporary freedom. Just understand whatever gets said then becomes very public. So, and that's kind of what I would talk to y'all individually about kind of what your preferences are. Sometimes speaking individually gives you a little more freedom, but it hinders your ability to communicate with each other. So there's trade-offs both ways.
Exactly.
All right, and I'm sorry, there's one other thing I need to mention. So our next meeting on May 20th, I will not be able to be here, but I will contact you all individually after I get the agenda just to make sure you don't have any legal questions that would come up. Thank you all. Oh, make sure you wish everybody Happy Mother's Day this week. And Sarah, Happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
And LaDonna.
Thank you.
And Kayla.
Commissioner comments, start with you, Commissioner Mobbitt.
Just one thing, Mr. Fernando. Let's make that sooner rather than later. I don't want to sit on this for sure. So.
Oh, that's definitely my preference.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know. After that, I mean, here we are. So
that was kind of how I felt when the chair asked me to read the proclamation. I was right in the middle of reading that.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah, I want to I apologize for missing the last meeting. Clearly, I was out of country for work, and so I was not able to be here. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, I didn't go back and listen to the transcript either. So I don't know what all was discussed. But I'm going to make my position known once again. I am still extremely concerned with where we're at as a county with the clerk. To be very clear, this is just adding another level to that tonight with where we're at. It appears that we're in a real stand down with it. But where I'm concerned with is we've got the audit. We've got findings that now for 3 years in a row has continued to be findings. They have not been addressed. It's exactly the same thing year after year, and the resolution date is an entire year. I'll solve it next year. And we continue to have findings here when we get to a point to where there are millions of dollars worth of journal transactions that have to be adjusted to get it scheduled, to get it to a point to where the audit can proceed. When they have to go hire an outside consulting firm to handle this on an annual basis, it appears it's going to be an annual basis. We had to go out and hired an outside consulting company, which we've yet to get any information on what it's costing the taxpayers. I have no idea how many hours has been spent, how much has been paid, and so far we've been told nothing's paid. Well, consultants don't work for free. I can promise you these people do not work for free. So there's a bill that's growing. We have no idea what that is, how much it is, or anything. And the primary auditors is recommending, again, keep that service going. That tells me they don't have confidence in what we have now with the findings that's continued to happen. One audit was literally within 10 days shy of 2 years after the end of the fiscal year. One this year, 18 and a half months after the close of the fiscal year. And the only reason the one is getting done now is because we've been on it like unmercifully since February 17th, I think it was the date when this all come about, and we had a commission meeting here about it. So for me, I am not sure what is happening in that office and what's happening, how it's done. I wasn't here to be part of the conversation last week, but I'm telling you, I think there needs to be a forensic audit done of this office to find out where we're at with our finances and what has to be done to get it aligned, to get it moving in the right direction. We bought software 3 years ago at the urging of the office that said it's going to be fantastic. We got to buy the software. It's going to be great. And for 3 years, that has been the reason why we said the job can't be performed. And if we're having to make that level of journal entries, I'm very much concerned at what else is not getting done. What grants are not getting billed for that we have money available for us. We lost money one year. It was not rebilled to this board. It was not kept up to it. We only become officially on an audit from tonight, and we had to find out through different channels. With all due respect, this is not a direction that everybody wants to hear. Social media can jump on there and say how ugly I am and how bad I am. I don't really care, to be honest with you. We run a corporation, here's the way I look at it. We run a corporation that we pay employees to do services. And when I say we are the board of directors for a corporation that the citizens pay us with their taxes. They pay us money. We sell them a service. We sell them government services through the form of taxes. And I can promise you, where I work, you lose $68,000, you hide it, you don't say anything, you're unemployed. That's what happens where I work. And this whole approach to say, well, just be nice. I am not concerned about niceness. I'm focused on performance. Job performance. And it's a problem in a company when you have no confidence in your CFO. And I don't know what we have. I don't know what we have, what we don't have. We've got auditors come do it. They don't go through they don't go through all your processes to make sure that there's steps in place to ensure everything is smooth. The issues here remain the same thing. There's issues in here where it says the accountability and overriding, management overriding of processes. There's things in here that at some point it needs to be addressed and it needs to be done. And I am glad, if we don't want to take a motion tonight because it's not anything on the floor, I think it's time we should send a letter to the governor asking for the OIG to come in and do a forensic audit. And I'm glad to wait, since it's not on the agenda for discussion, for this board to take any steps. I'm glad to put it on the table at the next meeting.
So you're asking for it to be on the next agenda?
I'm asking for it to be on the next agenda for a conversation and a discussion. We're going down a path that I'm not sure how we get out of it. Because at this present time, when you looked at the audit findings that was presented for the 22 and 23 year, all the other constitutional officers had no findings. The Board of County Commissioners and the Clerk of Court's office had findings, significant findings. The sheriffs did have two recommendation comments. But for the 2 years, it wasn't. So all the other constitutional officers have figured out how to do things according to the audit and get it right. But this board must rely by constitutional requirements on the clerk to serve that capacity. We made an offer let us have someone to help with this and help make it right. It was very quickly rejected back. No, under no circumstances would anybody else do that. And so now, not only have we had challenges getting it done and having to hire an outside consultant to do it, now they want to take on the minutes. Have had to hire somebody else to do minutes when we have somebody that's done minutes here for many years. Now the county is paying additional funds to pay another person to do that. Now we wants to take over the software to allow consultants access to our network, and that's where we're at today. We've had to make that access available in order to get the audits done. I can tell you where my employment, nobody has access to our networks outside. No consultants, none. Employees, yes. Consultants, no. When an audit is done, and ours are done on time every year in advance, and when it's done, the auditors come to our building and they spend a month in our building. We give them an office and they do all the work there in the building. They don't have access to our network. It is a cybersecurity risk, and we are exposed right now. So the clerk wants that because she wants full control with everything access rights to that, and us have no insights to it. I have a problem when our CFO wants full control of who decides gets to see the finances in this county, and only her gets to share them. Folks, we got a problem right now. We can't trust our own finances right now, and we're going to get locked out of it because of it. I have issue with that. We're going down a path that's not a pretty path. But this board ought to have confidence in what's happening in our finances in this county. And y'all may have confidence in it, but I do not.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mann.
I've had countless taxpayers contact me, had conversations. They're concerned, they're losing confidence in our ability to manage the funds of the taxpayers in this county. I agree that a forensic audit is needed sooner rather than later. We should request one from the governor's office. I agree that the security of our data, being open to consultants and open to access from foreign countries, is dangerous. There's a lot of things that have to be asked before that kind of access is given to anybody, and very concerned over where we are and how we manage our data. That is Baker County taxpayers' data, and it has to be secure. It has to be maintained properly. And I'm very uncomfortable with where we're headed with the server and the software.
Commissioner Hartley.
I have nothing.
I was in the meeting, or before the meeting started, I got the email. And I read the email. And for someone to request total control over finances of this county, and I hate to say it, makes me wonder why. Why would you want total control? Why would you not want people to check what you're doing? Why would you not want this board to have somewhat control over what we purchase? The auditors today, and every year since I've been a commissioner, says that we have not enough people looking at the control of the money of the county. It's an audit finding. And every small county that I know of has the same thing. There's not enough people in the process. And that's because you don't have enough employees. Now, as a county, by what I read, and I'm not the smartest lawyer in the room, our clerk of court says you will do this or we'll sue you. What is she hiding? What is she hiding?
Got one comment real
I
quick.
will agree. We need to contact the state of Florida and have a forensic audit done of the finances of this county. Just because of the email I received tonight, it makes me second guess my decision on that I made or what I talked about in the last meeting. If you want that much control over a government entity, something is wrong. Either you're trying to do something or you're trying to hide something. And I think we need to find out what's being hid. Because I know for a fact I was never told that there was $60-something thousand he took away from this county. And I've been a commissioner a long time. I knew for a fact I wasn't told, and many times in the public hearings, I ask, is there any constitutional officer in the room? You got anything to say? Never report that we was late on an audit, or was even going to be late on an audit. Now, I'm sitting in a room, we got the audit, finally, and I'm looking at my phone, and I get a subpoena. It's not a subpoena, but might as well call it a subpoena. You will do this or else, which is the same thing I heard in a public meeting, in a private meeting with the clerk of courts about 3 months ago. Y'all will do this or else. So it's not the first time I've been threatened. And I think the public needs to know that. I don't take kind of threats. And I'm very disturbed by what I got tonight. It actually makes me sad. But I think as a board, we got to protect the county's money. We were elected to protect the county's money. And I hope that when we do a forensic audit, nothing's found. That would be my hope, my prayer. But with what I got tonight, I would recommend either we hire a private firm or we get the state of Florida and we do a forensic audit of the clerk of courts and the finances of Baker County.
Chairman Anderson, if I may.
Yes, sir, you may.
I fully support that we request the audit to come in. With $15.963 million in adjusting journal entries, and our budget for that year was $51.686. I mean, that's nearly 30% of the total budget would had to be adjusted. Whether it was just minuscule things or total from grants, receivables, and everything that Ben and Zach mentioned today. I mean, that's a significant amount of adjustments that had to happen. I know we were talking about putting it on the agenda for next meeting. With Mr. Commando not being here, will that hinder anything? I just want to make sure.
No, we'll talk ahead of time, and I can always give direction to each of you individually or to Ms. Little.
Okay. Sounds good.
I would ask Rich, if you don't mind, to work with Sarah and the chairman to draft a letter for our review to be ready for that after you have comments with us, so we can make sure we're all in agreement with it, for it to be signed by all the commissioners, if possible.
If you don't mind, let me just figure out the process. I know it's
Okay.
been done. I know it's been done with another county I represent. I plan on just talking to that commissioner and asking him how he did it, because I know he was the one who initiated it.
Be great. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Speaking of other commissioners in other counties, if y'all don't already have it on your calendar, the Florida Association of Counties Conference is June 24th to 27th in Orlando. It's a really good networking opportunity. They have a lot of presentations already scheduled to talk about the Live Local Act, legislative changes, and things like that. So there's a lot of things kind of changing for county governments across the state. If you're able to make it, it's a good opportunity.
Anything else? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.